has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and the champion of liberty, of human equality. Let's salute him, fellow Ghanaians, the nation's founder, Sajifo Kwame Nkrumah. May God bless him, Ghana showboy, Africa's great son, Sajifo Dr. Nkrumah. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and the champion of liberty, of human equality. Let's salute him, fellow Ghanaians, the nation's founder, Sajifo Kwame Nkrumah. May God bless him, Ghana showboy, Africa's great son, Sajifo Dr. Nkrumah.
Hello, what are you doing Tuesday to Friday, 7:30 to 9 o'clock p.m. every day? You should be watching The Couch. I'll tell you why. On Tuesdays, we talk social issues, lifestyle, health, all those everyday issues that affect us in the big ways. Late Wednesdays are for book reviews. Thursdays are for the hard talk, those socio-economic, policy-oriented, political questions that demand for the tough questions to be asked. Our personality profiling Fridays, when we get to know the stories behind the winning personalities we love. Inspirational story from inspirational personalities. Hey, listen, you really cannot miss The Couch with me, Amma, but still the only TV show with a hat.
And we are live on Pan-African Television. If you're watching us on digital TV, on Go TV, among several platforms through which you can hear us. We are live on Facebook, Pan-African Television. We are live on YouTube, that's Pan-African Television. And we bring you the mother of all talk shows, ALHAJI and ALHAJI. Here we say it as it is, no matter who is involved in it, and we leave you better educated. But we're not only live on this channel. We are live on Ahunto 92.3 FM in the Greater Accra region. We're live on Volta 1 TV in Ho. We are also live on Global FM in the same place, Ho. And we are live on Sela Radio in Dabala. We are also live on Shine FM in Akachi, among several other affiliates that are currently tuning to us. A big thank you to all of you, and thank you for giving us the reach we need. Now, we are all around Ghana. Everywhere you are, you will be able to listen to us. My name is Sena Nombo. Always my pleasure to say a good morning to you every Saturday. And of course, today we'll be discussing the major issues that made the news. But before I introduce my topic, this morning, ongoing currently, is there's supposed to be some protests. And WhatsApp News captures it as hashtag Fix the Country hits the street on Saturday as police fails to secure injunction against demo. And the story is that the raging youth movement, hashtag Fix the Country, will hit the streets in protest Saturday as the Ghana Police Service attempt to secure an injunction against the demonstration aimed at protesting against police brutality of Ghanaian journalists and extrajudicial execution and punishment of citizens. On Thursday, May 2021, the police had told the group that it will not be able to provide them security for the protest contrary to their legal obligations. The police then proceeded for the second time to seek an injunction against the angry youth, but the attempt backfired. In a statement released today, May 21, 2021, the group stated, "We are happy to inform you that all is clear. The Ghana police was not able to secure a court order stopping tomorrow's demonstration. As a result, we are proceeding with the demonstration. In the protest that march with color, the youth will converge at the Independence Square and process through some principal streets of Accra. So this statement was issued yesterday and captured. So there's supposed to be a protest today, starting from the Independence Square. So that's the story. But this morning we are discussing the Electoral Commission's reforms. The Daily Graphic of yesterday has two stories on page 16. And the stories are, one is headlines, parties endorse new voting time. The other one is NDC against polls closing at 3 p.m. And the first one says the Inter-Party Advisory Committee has accepted a proposal by the Electoral Commission for voting in the 2024 general election to end at 3 p.m. instead of the usual 5 p.m. The decision is, however, subject to the amendment to the constitutional instrument used in the conduct of elections. In arriving at the decision to accept the proposal, IPAC agreed that the move will pave the way for the early counting of votes and declaration of results at polling stations, and also avoid the inconveniences associated with the late close of polls. The other story, also by Nana Konedo Ajiman, and that's NDC against polls closing at 3 p.m. There's some key electoral reforms proposed by the Electoral Commission have been rejected by the National Democratic Congress. The proposals are changing the closing time of polls from 5 p.m. to 3 p.m. in 2024 elections, the substitution of periodic mass registration with continuous registration, the introduction of an all-year-round voter exhibition exercise through the use of technology, and the restriction of data entry of election results to the constituency collation level, and the generation of regional and national reports. So that's our very first issue that we'll be discussing. And then we'll spend some time talking about the situation that involved the National Security Liaison for the Ashanti region, who was forcibly removed from office. The National Security Coordinator says that was done on his orders. And we are hearing a lot more from that issue. We'll spend some time on that. And then we'll spend time talking about the president's plea for debt forgiveness. He says because of COVID and also the structure of the global economy, we need to get some reproof from those who can grant it to us. And so he's been making that plea on his tour of some European countries. And those are the issues we'll be discussing today. A big thank you for making time once again. I'm joined in the studio this morning by Mr. Kwesi Pratt-Jr., who is managing editor of the Inside newspaper. Sitting right beside him is Jifat Tegan, who is a member of the communications team of the National Democratic Congress. Mr. George Isi is a communications director for NADMO and also a member of the MPP's communications team. And then we have the privilege of being joined by Joseph Yamin, who is a former deputy Ashanti regional minister, for the discussion today. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll discuss the issue. Stay and stay with us.
May God bless him, Ghana show boy, Africa's great song, Sergeant for Dr. Kuma.
What are you doing Tuesday to Friday, 7:30 to 9 o'clock p.m. every day? You should be watching The Couch. I'll tell you why. On Tuesdays, we talk social issues, lifestyle, health, all those everyday issues that affect us in the big ways. Wednesdays are for book reviews. Thursdays are for the hard talk, those social, economic, policy-oriented, political questions that demand for the tough questions to be asked. And personality profiling Fridays, when we get to know the stories behind the winning personalities we love. Inspirational story from inspirational personalities. Hey, listen, you really cannot miss The Couch with me, Amma, but still the only TV show with a hat.
Stories is all about our market. Issues such as sanitation, market structures, storage facility, pricing, bargaining, and everything else that goes on in the market. It's going to be very educative, entertaining, and interactive. We would visit our various markets with both sellers and buyers to know everything concerning our market. Join me. My name is Mortia Anandinate. I'm your market lady.
Well, a very big thanks to Matambo Radio in Tamale, Diamond FM also in Tamale. A big thank you to Kitawon Radio and also Zebs FM in Zebila, among our several affiliates. I'll keep mentioning them as we go along, so that if, in case you're traveling, you know exactly what to tune to in order to be able to listen to ALHAJI and ALHAJI. Once again, welcome. We'll start with the issue with the Electoral Commission. I start from my immediate left. With Mr. Joseph Yamin. Good morning. Wonderful to see you. To have you on the platform for the first time.
Yeah, it's a privilege. It's a show you didn't want to miss. So it's nice being here. Yeah.
So you start for us on the first topic.
Okay. Well, Sena, I had the AC's proposal. And the one that is dominating affairs is the closure of the polls at 3 p.m. It's been rejected by the NDC, that's our party. And I think I side with both ends, the NDC and the Electoral Commission. I believe that the polls should be closed earlier than the 5 p.m. But I don't agree with the 3 p.m. proposal by the EC. And so I agree with the NDC rejecting that closure, pegging it at 3 p.m. And I also stand with the Electoral Commission wanting to close earlier than the 5 p.m. And these are my reasons before I come to the other proposal they put forward. You see, 5 p.m., closing the polls at 5 p.m. gives room for people to manipulate the results. At certain places, by 5 p.m., you see that the whole place is dark. And we are not so sure of stability of power. And so, for instance, in 2020 election, at 5 p.m., it started raining in Ashanti region. 5 p.m. was the closure of the polls. At that 5 p.m., probably there will be still people in the queue to go and vote. They will stop you from joining the queue, but those in the queue will have to finish voting before ballots are sorted out and counted. So 5:30 thereof is where ballots will be poured out to be sorted out. And at that time, it will already be dark. And so, for instance, in the last election, it started raining around 5:30 p.m. They had to move the counting into the classrooms or places that the rain could not disturb the process. Then, all of a sudden, there was lights out. One, there is COVID. So, people who were around there to ensure that the right counting is done were prevented from entering the rooms where the counting was supposed to take place. So you are forced to stay out. The Electoral Commission and their staff are the only ones allowed to enter and to do whatever they want to do. Then there's lights out. Again, how do you ensure that there's adequate light? And to me, I think that if we to close around 4 p.m., 4 to 6, where we'll be seeing some darkness, it's enough time to have gone through almost all the counting. And that will give room for us to be able to check the system very well. And so I think that when the polls are closed earlier than the 5 p.m., we'll be fine. But to say that we should close at 3 p.m. will deprive some people also from coming to vote. Again, I also believe that we could start the polls earlier than the 7 a.m. For instance, in my polling station, I was there before 5 a.m., sorry. Then there were people in the queue. By 6:30, the Electoral Commission had, it's almost done with all the sorting. Those in the queue were more than 50, and we still had to wait till 7 a.m. before the start of the polls. And so, if we still want to make the 7 to 5 hour period, then we could start earlier than the 7 and close earlier than the 5. To me, having been in politics for this while, I know that the 5 p.m. is not good for closing of the elections, because it hinders clear counting of the procedure. And so I do not totally disagree with the Electoral Commission. I disagree on the time, that's 3 p.m. I would agree if they are to push it to 4 p.m. But my political party still believes that the 5 p.m. is adequate enough to carry on. So that's my position when it comes to the proposal in terms of the timing. Then they are talking about an all-round registration. Yes, and that one, I don't see how it's going to be very effective, especially with the monitoring of the political parties. Registrations are always done with party agents around. Then you want to do an all-round registration. How do you do it? How are the parties able to monitor the registration and be sure that the people that you are registering are not minors, not foreigners? So that system, the EC cannot convince me currently as we stand that they will be able to do it with the confidence that everyone is expecting them to have. Then they talk again about the exhibition of the register. Again, that should also be an all-round exhibition. It's not just to go and check your name. It's also a process to which you can also challenge people who are not eligible to be in the register, minors, foreigners, and others. And again, your party agents will have to be available to ensure that they do not come and take people who are eligible to be on the register from the register. Then you also have the chance to also protest or challenge whoever is not supposed to be on the register to be on the register. At that point again, the EC is unable to convince us as it stands now that will be done. That brings me to my whole issue about the EC current status. From previous years, the Jane Mensah's administration, it's become clear that what the EC intends to do, no matter how strong the opposition is, they'll still want to go ahead with it. So it brings me to my point that, yes, we, the political parties, and in this instance, I'm talking about my political party, the NDC, should have in mind that the Electoral Commission is bent on doing what they want to do. And from past experience, I'm not sure they will want to change their mind, knowing very well that there's no force in this country to be able to push them to do what is right for the nation. So we should be prepared as a political party to work around their plans. To me, it's a Reagan plan. It's a plan to put in place to ensure that Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and the MPP continues to stay in office. But we should also have a plan around their plan. And that is what will be our security. So I don't agree to challenging it verbally or putting in formal complaints or positions like press conference and others. Yes, it's good to address, to let the people know our stand, but we should have behind the press conferences and the opposition verbally to put in place strategies to counter whatever move they intend to do. For instance, if they still want to go ahead with the registration all around, what would we do as a political party to ensure that our people get to go and register? Our people are not prevented from registering. That is what is lacking today. And if the NDC really wants to win the election, we should be working around the Electoral Commission and their plans. And I think we have what it takes to do that. It's all about planning. If you're able to plan, you should be planning towards getting resources to be able to activate what you are planning on. So me, I believe that the Electoral Commission will still go ahead with these proposals. Judging from the previous experience, I don't see them backing out. I think that we will talk. People will talk. Others will push in. As we speak now, we are not so confident that even if you go to the judiciary, the law courts, to want to challenge some actions, it's proving to be the negative almost all the time that we've gone to challenge them. For instance, with the birth certificate, it baffles the minds of so many people, apart from the MPP, that the Supreme Court will throw away that issue of a birth certificate. It's something that you don't need to be a law student or a law professor to understand that ruling itself didn't go well for this country. But hey, it is something that the MPP were so confident enough to say that go to the court and challenge it. I don't know what was influencing them. And there's people who will say that when the thief tells you go to court, there are two things involved. Either the father is the judge or the judge is an accomplice. And so when they are so confident that go to court, and we've always been following their orders, we are going to court, then we'll go to court. The end result doesn't favor. It's always not the best. So ask us now, what is the value of your birth certificate? If your birth certificate cannot guarantee you to go and register as a Ghanaian, cannot tell people who you are, your real identity, then what's the essence of giving birth certificates to us? But that is what has happened. And so, are you so confident that you want to go to the court and challenge the Electoral Commission and then another Dankwa Akufo-Addo's administration, the MPP administration, and win any case against the Electoral Commission? To me, it's no. So my party should be looking beyond the proposals of the Electoral Commission, do a strategic countering of their proposals and go ahead. But for the Electoral Commission to also say and praise themselves for the just ended the election as one of the best is something that baffles me. I mean, they shouldn't in any way disgrace themselves to that level. This is the worst electoral experience we've witnessed in times past. I mean, this is an Electoral Commission that failed to register people. I mean, that really wanted to be registered. The point is that you do the thing in phases. At certain points in time, you go there, the machines are not there. They were not prepared in any way for the exercise at the time that they were undertaking that exercise. Then you come to the voting itself. Yes, of course, there could be smooth voting process. There could be enough free movement. But the results of the Electoral Commission, of the process, determines the success of the whole event. And the results are not saying they did a good job. If you look at the EU's report that is saying that transparency was lacking at the collation centers, it means that we produce winners who probably are not. And to me, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo didn't win the election. It's every indication that he never won the election. But because there wasn't transparency in the collation system. And so you can make it so clear, so good from the beginning and try to turn it around at the end. That is what the Electoral Commission did. So from the counting, things went bad. And indeed, it was so bad that we had to produce a president that Ghanaians never voted for.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Yamin. And thank you for joining us today. The story by the Daily Graphic says at some point the workshop was attended by more than 10 political parties, including the New Patriotic Party, the People's National Convention, the Convention People's Party, the Great Consolidated Popular Party, the National Democratic Party, the Liberal Party of Ghana, and the Ghana Union Movement. And it seems all these parties endorsed the position the proposals by the Electoral Commission. Mr. AC.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Sena. Good morning to my co-panelists, and good morning to our viewers. It's always a privilege to be on your set, ALHAJI and ALHAJI. The Electoral Commission, I don't know whether I can box in what the NDC said. We'll come back to the NDC's position. Oh, we boxed them all, okay. Closing at 3 p.m., the catchphrase for whatever they said, and they thought that one of the decisions that IPAC minus the NDC, was that they should close the polls at 3 p.m. I say, for me to accept that or not, I will need data. Which data is that? Do they have any data or record to show the number of people that vote between 3 and 5 p.m. over the years? Between 3 and 5, because I know that when you vote, the time of voting is captured, okay, by the BVD and co. So if we have data to show that the number is minimal, then and it is insignificant such that we can do away with it, then maybe I'll be convinced. My boss, Evans Nimako, is said elsewhere in Africa, they close at 2 p.m., so it's feasible, it's doable. But I would need data to convince me that it's doable. Again, have they factored in the terrain of the country, especially in the remote or rural constituencies? I've had the privilege of living in a very difficult rural constituency, and I tell you, if the polling station is here, the radius within which people come to vote, some are miles and miles away. You get it? And so they'll move from their cottage or hamlets and come to the school where it's been identified as, you know, the voting center to come and vote and go. As though the EC has a certain radius where they can set up polling stations and go, but in typical rural areas, they are scattered villages, so they get one place, central place, and then that is the voting center. And so if you factor all those in, how is it that some people even go to farm before they come back to come and vote, and those things are there. So I would want to look at all those things and then see whether it's feasible that 3 p.m. But they claim there are challenges with the 5 p.m. because right after that we're getting into the dark. There's other instances where we are supposed to start at 7, and then in some places materials do not get there early, and they start around 9, some even 11. You get it? But the EC is also right in saying at certain points in the voting process, you know, the officers become idle, okay? And so doing nothing and waiting. And they did something very nice in the last election by subdividing a lot of polling stations, okay, making it a maximum of, I think, 700 or 750 per polling station. You get it, which is good, okay? And so this then will facilitate the early finishing of the vote and all that. And so if that is the case, then yes, they are taking steps to address challenges and co, and they think it's time for them to bring it to 3 p.m. so we can have ample time to count out the polling station and then go to the collation center. And now that the regional center has been added, and then subsequently to the headquarters in Accra. So one good thing is it's been proposed, and I believe IPAC will deliberate on it. It will be captured in a constitutional instrument and forwarded to Parliament. And so in Parliament, the two major political parties will have the opportunity to debate it, because when it gets to the subsidiary committee on legislation and co, then, you know, it will be tabled in the plenary. And so they would then have the opportunity to debate it, whether to get all the reasons, the convincing reasons from EC and the convincing reason on the part of the people who think the 3 p.m. is not good. I'm happy the Honorable Yamin is also proposed a middle point of 4 p.m. It's a good suggestion. So in the course of the deliberation, all these things will be factored in. And so, yes, they've tabled it. Let the process go through. Let's continue to discuss it. And then ultimately, when it goes to Parliament, the final decision will be taken so that it makes our elections better and trustworthy. Okay, we have a lot of mistrust for the Electoral Commission, both of us, the two major parties. When we are in opposition, we have problems with the Electoral Commission. Okay, when we are in government, everything seems to be okay. You get it? And so let's be ready to listen and judge with the Electoral Commission. Now, the next aspect is the all-year-round registration. Okay, it's a good thing, especially now that we in a technology era. Some of these things are easily doable. Okay, you just walk in there upon attaining the age of 18. You go and register and go. But the issue is the mistrust, okay, amongst the political parties. That's the problem. And so the EC then becomes the victim, okay, because of our mistrust, okay. And so that's the problem, because there are places that you don't really need an agent at the polling station. You don't need it, okay. If we trust the system and we believe the system is going to work the way it ought to work, what do you need an agent there for? What are they there for? You get it? But because we don't trust ourselves and we believe that given the opportunity, we'll do certain things to the detriment of the other parties. So we then go and sit there and then be policing the polls and co. And so if we can have that continuous registration, there are some people who can even, will be 18, but at the time designated for registration, the mass registration, he is not in the jurisdiction. You get it? Okay? And so he will lose out if he is not lucky to come and there's a supplementary registration and he takes advantage of it. Then maybe he's traveling and will be back before elections. Okay? And so if he has the privilege or opportunity to go to the EC office and register at any time T, he would have done that before traveling, and he will be back to vote. You get it? And that shouldn't be any big deal, because we have a dependable data system that all the parties can access to know on which day people have registered, how many people have registered any day. You don't need it, because the EC has a central database that NDC, MPP, CPP, and co can access any day to see, over the last 2 weeks, how many people, new voters, registered. If we have these things, it will be a transparent approach for everybody to trust the system. Now, continuous exhibition too that they've put forward. They are saying that they will let us use the SMS approach to get it. But as the Honorable Yamin said, there's more to the exhibition than just checking to know whether your name is there and then whatever, your sex, everything. So sometime in the last distance, some people will text and the information that will come is actually not their information. Some have had that, but I think there was an improvement on that. So it's a good something that we need to get. Now, the Constitution in Article 46, says something. I'm saying this because the independence of the EC. Sometimes some people feel you can tell them what to do and go, but the Constitution captures it succinctly, aptly. Except as provided in this Constitution or in any other law, not inconsistent with this Constitution, in the performance of its functions, the Electoral Commission shall not be subject to the direction or control of any person or authority. Now, this is succinct. And so the independence of the EC is not challenged. That is how come Dr. Ferijan had consistently said that IPAC, the decisions of IPAC, is not binding on the Electoral Commission, okay? But the good news, as was captured by the NDC yesterday, is that IPAC's, most of the reforms that have been carried out by the Electoral Commission were engendered at the IPAC meetings, okay? Which means the EC is working collaboratively with the IPAC, okay? And so that spirit must be allowed to continue, Okay, it's unfortunate the NDC is having problems with the Electoral Commission, and for that reason, they've decided not to attend IPAC meeting. I'm not too happy with that. I said elsewhere that I think it's time the Electoral Commission considers the position of the NDC, okay, and engage the NDC one-on-one. The EC, Madam Jane Mensah, the beautiful woman, and then the brilliant Bosman Asari, okay, and the affable, humble Tete should put their team together and engage the NDC one-on-one. Look, whether you like it or not, NDC is a major stakeholder in the political playing field. You cannot take that away, okay? Look, before the 2020 election, I didn't give His Excellency President Mahama anything more than 42% than the NDC. I didn't. What happened? 5 percentage points addition was added to what I was thinking they were going to get. Okay? And they are claiming we never were. It's not true. Because when they went to the Supreme Court, they didn't provide a single pink sheet to support their case. So it's just, you know, a hot air that they were blowing. But the truth of the matter is they have some problems. They are a major stakeholder. They've put it forward, and you cannot say ignore them. No. Okay? Let the EC meet the NDC one-to-one or one-on-one, minus IPAC. NDC leadership, come. What is your issues? When they have that discussions and the EC feels that, no, these issues can be addressed, let them go ahead and address it, okay? And then bring it to the IPAC meeting for whole discussions so that the NDC will have that trust in the Electoral Commission, okay? We all know that you need to take your destiny into your own hands when it comes to election. We didn't trust Charlotte Osei, okay? We took our destiny into our own hands, and fortunately, we succeeded. They don't trust Madam Jane Mensah, okay? And what are they doing? They're finding it very difficult. Every step on the way, they have problems with her. Is it not time that Madam Jane Mensah say, okay, General Mosquito, Uncle Sami Futo, come and let's sit down, and your team, Griffiths and co, come and let's sit down. What is the issue? Let's address it. Can we address? If we can't address this one, okay, we'll take it to the IPAC team. Let's have holistic discussion. Because NDC is a major player in the game. You cannot take them for granted because we want the peace, unity, and harmony of this country. They can cause destabilization, like it or not. Okay? They can. And we don't want those destabilization to happen. We are developing our country. Let's do things that will make us be one and then progress in our developmental agenda. Okay? That's my wish. And so if you continue to disregard the pain of somebody, you will get, there's a proverb in Akan, to it. If you chase away the coward, it gets to a point they stand and turn and face you. You get it? And so we need to stop anything that will send the signal that the EC disregards the NDC. So Madam Jane Mensah, Dr. Bosman Asari, Tete, and co, you know, please, that's my appeal. Meet the NDC. They have to, after yesterday's press conference, a lot of things were enumerated by the NDC. There are difficulties they are having. Can't you sit down with them and address it? That's my point. Now let's come to the self-praise of the EC. These are facts. Most of the things they say is achievement are facts, okay? In the difficult times of COVID, when people didn't give them a dog's chance, okay, and thought what they were doing was nothing, was not going to help all of us, they were able to move. When the NDC and its surrogates, okay, or partners were on the streets everywhere in the country demonstrating against the compilation of a new register. They succeeded in compiling a register with over 17 million people on it. It didn't end there, okay? It didn't, unless somebody proves me otherwise. But in the period, we didn't get escalation of COVID as a result of the registration because they observed the COVID protocols, okay? Unless there's scientific data to prove to me otherwise. But COVID did not escalate in the period. In fact, they are saying not even a single COVID case was recorded, okay? So it's an achievement. So, and then go forward. In the election itself, the process was very smooth. Facts. No long queues. Facts. Okay? 79% of the registered voters actually voted. 79% is phenomenal achievement. And they are saying they've been able to save the nation $90 million US. I have some reservations. You get it? So that is worrying to me. Okay? I don't get it. But they said they saved the nation about 522 million. How did they do that? They are saying that in the 2016 elections, the cost per register or a person to vote from the whole process was about $13. Okay? As of last 2020, cost per voter was $7.7, $7.70. Okay? And so they've reduced the cost by about 41%. If it's true, that is a good thing. Okay? And again, they are saying, and I was with Honorable Amalba on another program, and he said he doesn't understand, and it's a bit something. The Electoral Commission is saying that it's praising government for fully funding the 2020 elections. You know, normally donors contribute about 40% thereof. Okay? But the 2020 election was fully funded by the government of Ghana. And Honorable Amalba thinks, why should EC sing that praise for governments? Okay, I should be singing that praise. Okay, but if they don't put it out, we cannot get it to happen. It's good governance procedures. Once we are gradually drifting to the point where we can fund our own elections, it's a good thing. You get it? It's a good thing. So if it's 100%, it's good. Now going forward, I think the EC. Yes, the other thing too that came up is about the 7 or 8 people who lost their lives. It's true, but the EC also said something which is true and respected. They're saying that on matters of security, as far as elections are concerned, it's not their responsibility. It's deferred to the Ghana Police Service. Okay? It is the responsibility of the police, and sometimes we get them co-opting the army to help them to execute that. So I think they were right. Or they are right in saying it is the duty of the security service or the police service to ensure the security, okay? And I was an agent at the Coalition Center in Cape Coast, okay? And where we did the coalition was an enclosed area, okay? If that, and it's only party agents, EC officials who are returning their things, and then observers, election observers, and who had access there, okay, and the security was very tight and cool, and that everything was open for us. You can challenge figures and go with your own private document or source. You get it, and it was so open there. So these are things that, but some other places, things happen. Sena, what were the causes? I agree with the EC and the NDC and the EC itself that those matters should be investigated. But what caused the shooting of any of these 7 people, or all of these 7 people? We need to know that. But one thing I will say, Sena, if I'm a police officer detailed on duty with a gun, and I see you carrying a ballot box and going, I'll shoot you. I'm a ballot boy. I say, if I see you carry a ballot box, I'll shoot you. Why? When the whole nation is in the process of deciding the fate and the future of this country, you alone, you think you know better than everybody. So you would decide otherwise and take the ballot away? No. No. And so let's investigate and know the reasons for the shooting or otherwise which led to the death of some of the people. Okay? Then we shouldn't box all of them and say, hey, it is anarchical, it is high-handedness by the government or whatever. No. If you misconduct yourself in the process, there are consequences. Okay? So let's all come together, support the Electoral Commission gradually. They are on course to, doing things that will make our electoral process transparent. The last one, sir. The NDC has a problem with the last election results. I don't know. Up to now, I've not been convinced by any reason they've adduced to convince me that indeed there were things that happened that they won, that it was taken away from them. Nothing has been shown. They went to court. Not a single pink sheet was taken there. I was with the Greater Accra Regional Secretary on a program elsewhere after the elections. My Honorable Tetecha, one of the guys I love in the NDC. Then when we were doing the argument comparing the figures and co, he said the figures I was mentioning, which is on the EC side, were not correct. Then I said, so he has the duplicate copy of that. So he was going into his car to bring it. Sena, he did. When he came, the figures he had on his duplicate this day were at variance with what the EC had published. Duplicate. Then I said, and there was a stamp on it. Then I said, look, this is a fake duplicate. Otherwise, why? And so when they said they were going to court, I said, good. If what Honorable Tetecha showed me is some of the reasons, then NDC has a case. In fact, that's what I told some friends. That if what he showed me are the issues, then they have a case. And that is the only basis, the solid basis upon which when they get to court, they can convince every judge. If you say in Ayawaso West Wogon, Pan-African Voting Center, the NDC had 19, the MPP had 88, okay? But in this thing, it is actually NDC had 59, and they made it 19. And you can produce that. No court will tell you we will not add the 40 different. You get it? But they didn't take that thing to court, which convinced me that it was a fake duplicate. And anybody can get that. Remember in the 2013 Supreme Court election petition, we had pink sheets which were duplicates. The same serial number, says throughout. For example, printed double of that. For what? Okay, for what? And we know things that happen. Okay, in election, I've been a polling agent many times. I've been a rep of my party at the coalition center many times. Okay, and so we ought to be vigilant. Vigilant. I tell you, in 2016, some of us were not very vigilant. Our candidate would have lost the election. We were very vigilant, especially at the coalition center. So the polling station is very important. The Justice Atuguba said it. And then, but another point is the coalition center. Now, the region is also being added. For whatever, but I think we lose nothing by adding the region. But I've heard Honorable Amalba say we are not a federal state. And he has the case. But again, EC is saying that when the regional this thing is collated, the EC will officially announce it to Ghana. That central region, the MPP had this NDC official figure, okay? And so all you need to do is to put all the 16 regions together, and then you can know your position. And so when that is announced there, and then in the transmission process, I'm happy with that because the NDC had a problem with the transmission process, okay? From the region to the headquarters. And so if it is announced that this is it, nobody can, change anything in the process of transmission, whether electronic, fax, or whether by hand delivery, okay? What is being declared and everybody is saying it. So what comes to headquarters is the official figure, which has been declared maybe in Cape or in Florida for the Eastern region, okay? Or in Go for the voter region. So these are things that I think they are things that are very positive and forward-looking. If we cooperate and understand the EC, and we all make headway as far as our electoral processes and reforms are concerned. So I wish Madam Jane Mensah well, and I believe she's acquitting herself very well so far. Some people disagree with me, but I know that as far as her conduct is concerned up to this point, if she keeps it up, nobody, whether there's a change of government today or tomorrow, nobody can touch her in that office, and the constitutional provision will be adhered to. Scripture sense.
Thank you very much, George. Before I move to Jifa, let me just go through a few of your messages you're sending to us by Facebook. Ayu Farouk is saying the electoral reforms to be taken by the EC is basically baseless, needless, and useless. This time around, the EC will not find it easy, you say. Habel Aukuda Doto says Nkrumah never left Gold Coasters in the hands of the colonialists to be enslaved forever. It is not a duty of us, the youth, to reject the those who are pushing us aground. Edward Mauli Motion, I think that's the name, says, Sena, please tell Mr. EC that people do go to vote in the afternoon because in the morning people are many there. So if the afternoon session will help me, then I'll go to avoid traffic. I usually vote in the afternoon around 4 to 5, and that time traffic is less. And says, I don't trust the EC because of the removal of Charlotte Osei. And says, I want to know if the EC has finished paying its officials for the 2020 elections. Thank you very much. Awuni Samo says, you should be, okay, says, you should be our next national organizer. Okay, that he has issues with some other people. Ansaja says, I love the NDC man's expressions. Nice and mature submission. I never knew the NDC still are full of this caliber. Dame Raymond says, the NDC man who from, okay. Gafaro Jantong says that Honorable Joseph, he said our incoming national organizer, what Madame Jean Mensah said is impossibly because some positions some polling stations don't close early. So I agree all NDC members should be vigilant. This EC is determined to carry out an evil agenda which can plunge the nation into confusion. I hope you all see through this and resist this. Abdul Salam Rufai is also saying there's no institution that can be trusted in the NPP government. Security are coming for you if you criticize the government. The police secure an injunction so people can't demonstrate. The media is silent and government promises could not be met. All things have been falling apart. And Patrice Donkofi says, I really don't understand what the EC is up to. How many days do they have before declaring the results after voting? Why in the rush? Have they considered those of us in the remote areas? Abena Pokuya Aka says, what does EC mean by all-round registration, all year-round registration? Is it not EC who changed the register and did new registration all over before the election? So what is this all about? We are heading towards dangerous times. So those are some of the messages you'll be sending to us through our Facebook platform. Thank you very much. Keep them coming, and I'll keep reading as we go along. Jefa.
Sena, good morning once again, and to your cherished viewers and listeners, and to my uncle Kwesi here, Honorable Yamin, and to Mr. Ayisi. I'm quite excited with something Mr. Ayisi said, that if somebody picks a ballot box, he will shoot the president. I found myself wishing he was in the Parliament House in the night where his own friend snatched and chewed ballot papers. I wish he were there. I can't say that I would have shot him, but if he says he will shoot somebody, I wish he were there to have done justice to that person, because he is roaming around freely, not being prosecuted, not being questioned, and he's even part of the trade committee, and has I forgot the position that he has even in the trade committee. So it tells you some sort of lawlessness that we have in Ghana, or injustice that is in Ghana. So I am very grateful that you have that instinct to shoot people when they steal ballot papers and boxes. I hope if anyone tries, you'll be there. So Sena, let's go to the topic of the EC. I like to mention Jean Mensah. I don't even like to mention Boss Manasari. I like to mention Jean Mensah because we are all responsible for the positions that we take over. And that is why when a lot of people are trying to give blame to other institutions about the economy, I just wonder why Akufo-Addo's name is not being mentioned, because he's the leader of the country at the moment. So I have this thing, and I think it's normal with everybody, that if it's not broken, why fix it? Sena, if something is not broken, why fix it? Especially because in a world like ours, there is always something that is broken. So instead of, when we have energy, when we have so much power to do certain things, why don't we direct our energy and our power to fix the broken things first? When we have so much leisure time, we have so much time on our hands, we can go ahead and fix the others that are not so broken but need some sort of attention whatsoever. Why is it in our nature, or let me just say, why is it in the nature of this particular government and the EC for that matter to decide to touch on things that are not broken and ignore the things that need to pay attention to need attention? Look at the things that happened during the 2020 elections. For the first time, during the coalition, the regional coalition and constituency coalition, a whole constituency was left out. That was Asojaman constituency. It has never happened before. A whole constituency. And that particular thing baffles me so much so that I know that there are 275 constituencies in the country. So when I'm collating figures of every constituency and I get 274, does it not tell me that there is one missing? So how is it that you're able to ignore a whole constituency? There's the issue of the South case. The Sancho Kofi areas, about 4 major towns that were disenfranchised. I would think that deliberately, it's not I would think, evidence shows that there is some sort of, no, the explanation that just doesn't match up. Deliberately left out to probably favor the current MP because that was his area, the current MP of the area, Peter Mewu. That's the first time they have ever won the seat. And we all know the aggression with which they tried to take that seat. And finally, they got it from themselves. And this is an example of the mishaps that went on there. Look at the various vote pattern that went on in several other constituencies, especially within the Ashanti region, which is the stronghold of the NPP. A lot of other issues. We're talking about the security issues where 8 or 7 people were killed in Techiman. How did the how did the issue? How did the EC address that issue? You see, whenever we are attacking an issue, we like to start from the bottom, the beginning, the very beginning. It isn't just the killing that we want to blame on the EC. Yes, we will blame it on them, but what came about? How was the issue addressed to the general public? Do we ever understand what went on over there? Has the EC, has the current government even come out to explain to people what went on there? There hasn't been any such of those cases. The various machines that the EC promised that they were going to purchase and actually budgeted for and said they had purchased, only for us to get to the grounds and see that they were using old machines. So I get even shocked when they say that they even saved money. I'm happy EC even said that a very typical indication that there was no saving of money is because the EC themselves, the EC as staff, said they weren't even paid. Sena, these and many more happened. I would touch on one major thing that showed so much difference in the coalition exercise after the election, where we weren't even briefed, not even a single update. The usual activity where you see people, you see the EC chair updating the entire country, system by system, constituency by constituency, on whatever is going on there. It didn't happen. It was so blurred that European Union even had to come and even mention how not transparent this was. How not transparent this whole election was. It was so blurred, as if there was something being hidden from us. And I just wonder how we are supposed to carry on from there. And then all of a sudden, through IPAC, EC wants to give some reforms, ignoring all these issues. And the first thing is the closing time for voting. And then I'll come back to what I say. If it's not broken, why fix it? Closing time for voting. I do not agree with what my first two panelists said about closing early. I think 5 o'clock is the best time. It has always worked. And the problem that we have ever had with voting or collation was never the 5 o'clock. At least this time around, we finished early, on time, and then we started counting our votes. I just want to say that this particular election showed us, all Ghanaians and all observers around the world, that election is not only won at the polling station anymore. It is won at the collation center. So, looking at the time that we have to close from the polling center before it is dark and going to the collation center does not guarantee that there is not going to be any rigging. In fact, if I have to compare this particular election to last 4 years and the rest, I would say that this election has just proven that rigging at the collation center is the most effective way, because that is like rigging in bulk. It is the most effective way. So closing at before dark, in as what the EC is explaining as to why we should probably close before around 3 o'clock doesn't just work for me. It doesn't guarantee anything. It only tells me that it is just shortening the gap and then preventing people who cannot remember that election day is not a holiday. Everyone goes about doing their normal activities on election day. So you cannot guarantee that somebody can leave their workplace and come and stay in queues for hours. Neither can you guarantee that somebody can come to vote before leaving for their workplace. Everyone has to come at the time that they are most convenient. And it is a general assumption that between 7 a.m. and 5 p.m., if you have decided to vote, you will definitely get a few minutes or about an hour to, come to your polling station and vote. So closing early does not guarantee in any way, because I was very, very engaging in my constituency during the election. I was an observer. I was just everywhere. And I really made it a point to look at certain things. And I can say for a fact, this thing, I've even mentioned it on this particular platform before, that in my constituency, that very night of the election, around 10 p.m., we had an attempted injection of 8 boxes by the former MP and his squad. Or let me say, he wasn't there, but of course, it was from the opposition. 8 boxes, 8 fake boxes, like boxes with fake ballot sheets, were being injected when a lot of polling agents were in rows with their boxes, waiting for their boxes to be taken to count. If not for vigilance on our side, these boxes would have been injected and overturned the result. And this happened at the Coalition Center, and it was in the night. My point is, when we close at 3 p.m., we will definitely still see dark at the Coalition Center. What does it guarantee? At the end of the day, we would rather have people complaining that they came to the polling stations at 3 p.m. and they couldn't vote, or they had so much to do, they were traveling from afar. And you know how sometimes, despite the registration exercise that go on every year, we still have people who decide to go and vote in their hometowns. And it's a norm. I do not blame them, because they feel like that is their home and that's where they want to go and vote. We still have people who decide to come and vote in different constituencies because probably that is where they grew from. They grew. I live in Tema. I still vote in Okaikwe North. It is a short time. I can really make it within that 3 p.m. But what about those who have to travel to their villages? When they get there and it's around 3 and they are not allowed to vote, I do not think it saves anything at all. I do not think it changes anything at all. And I think it's just one of the EC's dreams and fantasies, like when she said that she was going to get us results within 24 hours. After calculating all that she had to calculate, put everything down, she was so sure, came out and said, I'm going to give you results at 24 hours. And what did we see? Over 48 hours, about 72 hours before results came. Who are you deceiving? What are you rushing? What is your rush? What is the urgency? So you ask, what is the urgency about this 3 p.m. suggestion? What problem does it solve? I have dissected the issues right now, and I just want somebody to tell me what problem it solves. It is solving nothing. They have just deliberately ignored the problems that need attention and decide to touch on things that do not need attention. So I'll just say that once again, it would also inform Ghanaians as to why the NDC boycotted this whole issue. Because the EC has been in the habit of imposing their thoughts and their decisions on Ghanaians and political parties at that matter. Oh yes, we had about 10 political parties present, including the NPP. I'm glad the EC once said again that this game, maybe in future it may change, but this game of politics largely, in Ghana here, largely depends on NDC and MPP. We know for sure, we don't have to even bring this topic here, but all of us know that there are some political parties, the minor political parties, that are directly affiliated to the MPP, that go there and then, just follow the EC with whatever meeting, they just come there and then they are not with you just to make it look good. But we know that for a decision to go down well with every political party, it should first go down with NPP and with NDC. because the accumulation or the total of all the minor political parties is not even up to 5%. And we know that. It is even during election time that they're able to pull some crowd. When was the last time you even heard about 10, or how many friends do you have that belong to PNC or LPG? It's just an example I'm just making. It just tells you that they are minor. For now, maybe later they will grow. So this idea of the EC coming up with their own decisions, making it look like they're transparent and passing it on to us for us to address it, and then later on knows that because it doesn't go well with us, they are going to rather deal with these minor political parties. And of course, everyone knows in Ghana, they are in bed with the NPP. And I, as one, sitting here right now, feel that they are even twins, or they are one. There is no difference. To me, there is no difference between Jean Mensa and the National Women Organizer of the NPP. There is actually absolutely no difference. It's just the laws that say it, but we all knew that she was NPP before coming in. So boycotting it was even a good decision for me. At the end of the day, they pushed it down our throats. They found a way to sort the minor parties out, and then the NPP. So you think only the NDC, as a single party, was going to override those decisions? They've got what they have. But whatever it is, we know that it's an agenda. It has always been, if you trace it way back, from when Charlotte Osei was kicked out for so-called procurement reasons that no one understood, and immediately forced Jean Mensa down our throats. When we realized that, oh, there has been an induction of about several judges, suddenly there was the little things that were happening that we didn't pay attention to. The forceful decision about not allowing us to use birth certificates to register. All these things only made clear sense to the normal Ghanaian after the election. So if right after 2020 election we are in May, and the EC has suddenly started coming up with reforms that have nothing to do with the mishaps that went on in 2020, but rather something lying on somewhere there, I do not need a prophet to tell me that they have started cooking something again. But you see, I always tell people who think they are wise that when the hunter is learning how to shoot without missing, the bird is also learning how to perch without how to fly without perching. So if the EC thinks that they are going to get their way again in 2024 by starting with all these secret ingredients into the 2024 election, then they should think again. They should think again, because you can fool once, twice, and then not the third time. It is disheartening, especially for the families of the victims of the Techiman killings, that the EC will come out and say all this is the work of the security, police and military and whoever is invited. It's disheartening, because it feels like it is nothing at all. There was a child who was less than 18, I think it was a 15-year-old child that was part. And I wonder what ballot box that child was stealing. I'm wondering what ballot paper that girl child stole. I am just using her as an example to tell you that some people were just caught in the crossfires. I don't even know of anyone who was stealing a ballot box per se, but people were caught in the crossfires. It's just right. It's understandable if the EC says that it is the security forces that deal with these cases. They deal with the aftermath, the investigation, but explanation, some condolences, some communication between the public, the families, and they themselves would have made the issue less barbaric. It would have toned it down for us to think that, okay, from the beginning to the end, the EC cares. But we haven't seen anything of that sort. We haven't seen, the EC doesn't care, because even when the major opposition party, the NDC, had an issue and we went to court, the one woman who decided to start this whole thing decided that she wasn't fit enough to enter the box, or she wouldn't answer. Where's the transparency in this? You have nothing to hide and you cannot talk? Where is the transparency in this? You boil it up and you realize that this is a whole sham. So this IPAC meeting is just a cover-up. Yes, it's an association of parties in collaboration with the EC, but it's just a sham. It's just a cover-up for the EC to do what they want to do. 2024 is quite a long way. If they think they are planning ahead, it will get to the end and then it turns against them. All I have to say is that this EC has proven time and again that she is not trustworthy. She cannot be leaned on. I remember EC mentioned something about Ghanaians or political parties not trusting the EC, and I'm wondering whose fault is it? How has the EC behaved for us to trust her? In what way has she given us a reason to trust her? None. Not even a single thing. We are just human beings. We trust what we see can be trusted. And we mistrust what we see cannot be trusted. It's as simple as that. You go on to the all-round registration. And I don't even see the point for an all-round registration all year round. Where is the vigilance? How are we going to keep up like with the consistency of our agents being there? If it's open all year round, anything can be done. Even the short while. Look at the things that can be done within the short while. In places like Ashanti region, I'm scared. I don't want an all year round registration in Ashanti region because it's the stronghold of the NPP, and it has a very large population too. It will be a total disaster. But of course, they know that this will not go down the throats of the NDC well, so they know how to go about it. An all year round registration, seriously? And I know for sure from what they did, from the time that we're doing the registration, what happened in Volta region, there are many military men that were sent there as if we were refugees. For the first time, I felt, are we sure our people are part of Ghana? For the first time, I was wondering, I wanted to think like how Jean Mensa and Akufo-Addo were thinking. I wanted to know that, have they harbored it in their hearts for several years? That indeed, Voltarians are not in Ghana, are not supposed to be part of Ghana. Because the way they treated Voltarians was so different. The issue that happened in Central Kofi, the South areas, would have never, on God, would have never happened in Eastern region or Ashanti region. There would have never been such a mistake. And if there was a near mistake that was heading towards there, I am telling you that it would have been clarified within a minimum of like few hours. They would have been allowed to vote. 4 towns, 4 different towns, separate towns, would have been allowed to vote. So for the first time during the registration exercise, what happened in Volta region made me feel that Akufo-Addo and Jean Mensa, who are in bed together, probably have thought for so long that, of course, even though Ghana is now one, Voltarians don't deserve to be Ghanaians, or they are not part of Ghanaians, and so they have to be treated differently. And you're telling me all-round registration. I beg you. It will be all round in Volta region. It will be all round in Ashanti region. But at the end of the year, at the end of the day, we'll see the definition for all round in Volta region as different from all round in Ashanti region. I cannot buy into that. I do not trust the EC. I do not trust the NPP. I do not trust anything that they do. And I cannot put this big project of all year round registration into their hands and go to sleep. Neither can I also promise to be consistent and vigilant all year round. It's difficult. It is difficult to keep up with that. If I have to nominate some people as agents for about a week or 2 or even a month, I'm sure that our party can do that and more. But all year round, it is not feasible. And I think we should just give up on them. I think God knows. God gives and God takes. So whatever be the case, let us just relax. I just want Ghanaians to understand that the EC has started cooking something, just like they started when Akufo-Addo came to power. And this is a very typical example. It doesn't go well with me. It is a total, I would say, useless efforts to deal with issues that are not threatening to the sanity of our election system in Ghana. So whatever it is, they have succeeded in pushing it down our throats. All we have to do is to be vigilant, point out the mistakes, and then during 2024, we bring all these things out and then prove to Ghanaians that this woman is a mistake. And of course, I believe that she's even going to resign before her time if she knows what is good for her. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jifa. It's interesting reading the message, the live interaction whilst you're speaking. Billy Bala says a good morning to us. EC and Jean Mensa can build a beautiful castle in the sky. My question is, why is the EC and JM so perfect for the MPP that finds nothing wrong with anything she does? Felicitas Wakaria says the EC is arranging another rigging process since their foot soldier ex-Adenta MP said in 8 years they can't do any development in Ghana. Ni Laye Jata says this is the only country where the ruling party becomes the mouthpiece of the EC and national security. Keep toying with the patience of Ghanaian youth and you one day. Okay, thank you for that. This one from Ebenezer Otinkran says Mr. EC was 14-year-old girl who was shot during the 2020 election, also stealing ballot box. Thank you. There is one from Bawo, is it currency? Why not arrest anyone who dares to carry a ballot and investigate on who sent them? Just kill people for nothing. So there are several messages, very short ones. Let me just read one from, let me start with Kojo Chumbuafo, who says, Sena, the NDC must be very, very cognizant of the fact that the EC wants to change the time for closing of polls so that they can finish their predetermined agenda to rig the 2024 elections before sunset. They are trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist in order to rig. Listen to how Brad George is acting as the PRO for the EC instead of his designated NADMO. George EC has just confessed to threatening to kill someone. I am going to Kenya Bo's office on Monday to play the tape to him with a petition. But George, don't worry, nothing will happen. Interesting. Okay, so this one is also coming from, okay, that's quite a lengthy one, from Papa BC in Accra, who says that, hi, Sanajin Mesa and Anado-led MPP government must never be trusted relative to any election in this country. Facts is, leading to this present voters register of 70 million plus Ghanaians. What did Jane Mensah and leading members of the MPP like K. Mensah Bonsu, who leads the MPP in Parliament, and even Anado say against the old voters register of 60 million plus Ghanaians? Didn't they say it was over-bloated and ahead of, for a population of 30 million Ghanaians to have 16 million Ghanaians on the register, and that they felt it must be around 10 million Ghanaians on the voters register? K. Mensah Bonsu was heard using certain countries' voters register as comparison to that of Ghana. Finally, these are countries which are nowhere near our country in terms of awareness in democratic dispensation. In fact, they use several reasons like foreigners who were on that register that will convince and confuse Ghanaians to have their way. Today, 70 million plus voters register, not over-bloated and therefore corrupted again. Question is, what is the difference between 60 million voters register and that of 70 million plus Ghanaians as against their sing-song of 10 million Ghanaians on a voters register? Wastage of hard-earned taxpayers' cash on unnecessary voters register. Meanwhile, majority of poor Ghanaians are suffering. Look at them again, talking about fixing 3 p.m. to end voting. He says ignoramus lots. Okay, thank you. Some more before I get to Mr. Pratt. Dennis Yakuti says, my only problem with this EC reforms is that we just put a Supreme Court elected president in office which is saddled with critical problems that we do not even know where we are heading. And I wonder if this is the EC, if this is the time the EC should be talking about reforms leading to the 2024 elections. If they cannot do that subtly, at least for now, except it is for diversionary tactics. That said, I at least support the 3 p.m. closure of course, but it must come on the back of the election day being declared as holiday. The regional collation centers, on the other hand, must be aborted, and polling stations counting must still remain intact. Thank you. Let me end with ALHAJI from Pig Farm, who says, Madam Jimensa will go down in history as EC boss who plays selfish gains ahead of peace, safety, and democracy of we the good people of Ghana. Allah save Mother Ghana. Mr. Pratt?
Well, I think, first of all, it's important to recognize that many institutions and individuals have called for electoral reforms. And the individuals who have called for electoral reforms include Akoto Ampao, who was the President's counsel in the election petition hearing at the Supreme Court. I want to believe that people do not call for electoral reforms for nothing. Those who call for electoral reforms must have reason to call for the electoral reforms. And if everything about the 2020 elections went well, I don't think that there will be this clamor for electoral reforms. I'd like to find out what Mr. Akoto Ampao saw before he began calling for electoral reforms. What did he see which was not proper? What did he see which was wrong? Because if everything was right, he would not be calling for electoral reforms. Now, having said that, I think that IPAC was deliberately set up to enable the players in the political game to achieve consensus. The attitude of the Electoral Commission so far does not suggest that it is interested in consensus building. It was not interested in consensus building before the 2020 elections, and it is still demonstrating that it is not interested in consensus building. The IPAC invited the political parties to look at the reforms that it was proposing. The National Democratic Congress decided not to participate in that meeting. The EC did nothing, did absolutely nothing to examine the misgivings of the NDC, to look at what the NDC's problem was. It simply went ahead and had the meeting. This posturing is arrogant. This posturing is not helpful in consensus building. I mean, I would have liked to have seen the EC initiating a process to find out what the grievances of the NDC were and to attempt to address these grievances before moving on to this meeting. The EC did nothing, absolutely nothing. First of all, to hear the grievances of the NDC and to attempt to address the grievances. The EC's attitude simply is go to hell. And that has been the attitude for a very long time of the EC under its chairperson. And I'm very disappointed in that attitude. We are not going to go anywhere with electoral reforms if this is the attitude of the EC. The EC itself must be interested in consensus building. It does appear that it is not interested in consensus building. Now, the other thing which is completely baffling for me is the counting of numbers. The EC tells us that 10 political parties participated in the IPAC meeting. What does that mean? Let us say that you had an imaginary situation in which the National Democratic Congress and the New Patriotic Party decided to boycott an IP, such a process. Would the EC come and tell us that 9 parties attended, 2 were absent, and therefore it was okay to hold the meeting? There's a certain problem with the counting of numbers. The numbers they decide to count shows the numbers they decided to count displays its arrogance, displays quite clearly the EC's intolerance when it comes to the National Democratic Congress. Yes, 9 parties would have participated in the discussions, but without the MPP and the NDC, those 9 parties would mean absolutely nothing. That's when we are talking about elections. What are we talking about? If you have 9 parties who share 2% of total votes, the absence of 2 parties is significant, and the EC has a duty to ensure that those 2 parties come to the table. In this particular case, nobody can ignore the fact that the National Democratic Congress, on the basis of the last election results, is a major player and cannot be ignored simply because 10 parties turned up for a meeting. I think it's important also for us to look at this EC's record And if you look at this EC's record, you will come to realize that there has been a member of the commission who repeatedly had said that the NDC is a danger to Ghana's democracy. Is that the reason why the EC is behaving in the manner in which it's behaving? Is that the reason? And if the EC believes that one of the political parties is a danger to Ghana's democracy, how can the EC be expected to be fair and fair in the conduct of elections? It simply just beats me. You understand? Now, we are being told that the EC, which claims absolute independence, and I have said repeatedly that no institution in Ghana is absolutely independent or can be absolutely independent. The EC, which claims absolute independence when it comes to the election, to the organization of elections, is now looking us in the face and telling us that their only duty is to print ballot papers, create polling stations, go to the polling stations and distribute the ballot papers to prospective voters. And that doesn't care about security. That people can come to the polling stations with sledgehammers and bullets. And that would not be its responsibility. And that responsibility is the responsibility of the police. What irresponsibility is that? When did the EC realize that it is not responsible for the security arrangements in elections? If you read the Constitution, the 1992 Constitution clearly, the EC has a mandate for the conduct of elections, including security arrangements. It relies on the police service to provide it with personnel, but it is not the police service which is in charge of the security of our elections. It is the Electoral Commission. And that's a complete misreading of the Electoral Commission's responsibility for security. In any case, if the Electoral Commission believes that it is not responsible for the security of our elections, how come that after the elections, its chairperson addressed a press conference and praised itself over the supposition that there was no violence in the elections? Why was the EC trying to take credit for what it claims to be a non-violent election if it is not responsible for security? That credit then, if indeed there was that credit, should have gone to the police service and not the EC. And yet the EC took credit for the security of the elections. I'm still so baffled by that claim, which has no basis in law and has no basis in practice. So the EC is saying that we can organize elections and that the Azugus and so on can come to the elections with guns and wearing masks and so on and cause mayhem, and that would not be its responsibility. It has nothing to do with that. Where is this thinking coming from? Where is this thinking coming from? Now, amongst the reforms that the EC wants to introduce is the suggestion that polling should close at 3 p.m. What is that intended to achieve? If we close polling at 3 p.m., what would that achieve? In the last elections, when polling closed at 5, the EC still was bungling all over the place, made so many mistakes, so many unpardonable mistakes, even when polling closed at 5 o'clock. Election results were released, they were corrected immediately thereafter, and the continuations continued for more than 3 days. The corrections continued for more than 3 days. Even when we closed polling at 5 p.m., when we had enough time to conduct polling, look at the mistakes which were committed. Now we are being told that we should close polling at 3 p.m. I think one of the major problems we have in this country is simply the fact that many of our responsible national office holders have no idea about the geography of this country. They have no idea. They don't know the country. And because they don't know the country, they sit in their air-conditioned office and come up with directives, with suggestions and so on, which does not bear any resemblance to the reality of Ghana. Look, there are people in this country who can only move out of their villages and hamlets to polling station centers once a week, and that is on market day. Because the only vehicle which plies on the routes from their hamlets and villages to the polling centers, that's so once a week. Indeed, we have fixed our election date as December 7th. It may or may not fall on market days. People have to struggle to reach polling stations. For some of them, they have to walk 4 hours to reach a polling station. Now, these are things that we ought to take into consideration when we are designing the electoral process. Because when we are designing the electoral process, the objective must be that not even one person should be disenfranchised. You understand? So to argue on the basis that the majority can access polling stations is a wrong argument. It's an invalid argument. It's an argument we cannot accept. And we cannot accept because if you're going to close polling at 3 p.m. in this country, where many people, some people, have to walk 4 hours to a polling center, that will lead to substantial disenfranchisement of a large portion of our society, and it is not something we should encourage. If you watch elections from 1992 to 2020, one of the things that you cannot run away from is simply the fact that there are polling stations in which the election process starts at 9. There have been polling stations in which the election process has started at 11, some after midday. So what are we talking about? The level of efficiency in some of the polling stations is so bad that polling actually starts after 11 a.m. Now, if you come up and say that polling should by all means close at 3, would it include those polling stations in which polling starts after 11 p.m.? Would it include them? And indeed, is it the fault of the population? Is it the fault of the electorate that sometimes polling doesn't start before 11 a.m.? The argument that in some places there is no electricity and therefore it is important to close polling early and so on is absolutely nonsensical. You understand? We are saying that we have a problem, okay? And the problem is inadequate power supply or irregular power supply or the fact that some people don't have electricity at all. That is the problem we have. And the way to solve that problem is to accept that problem as a permanent problem and therefore make rules and regulations to accommodate that problem. My goodness, what kind of a country is this? I would have thought that the solution to the problem would be to provide light where there is no light. And not to accept the situation that there will be no lights and therefore we should close early and so on. What is this? My brother and friend Yamin was talking about the fact that in the Ashanti region, in some places by the close of polling in 2020, it has started raining. Who says that it cannot rain 24 hours a day? Who says? Where is the guarantee that in 2024, in Ashanti region or any other region, the rains cannot start pouring at 3? Where is the guarantee that the rains will not start pouring at 5 a.m. and continue to 6 p.m.? So that is not a factor in the discussion. The rains would not be a factor in the discussion. What we ought to do is to ensure that irrespective of the weather conditions and so on, people would vote and that their votes would matter. That's all. Their votes will count. Why? My brother George was talking about the election petition which went before the Supreme Court. And he's still dwelling on pink sheets. I'm shocked. He's still dwelling on pink sheets. The case before the Supreme Court that there were infractions of the law. That was the case before the Supreme Court. How do you just carry pink sheets to show infractions of the law? How is that possible? How is that possible? Carrying of pink sheets. How does that demonstrate that the law was not applied? So they should stop making that argument about carrying pink sheets to the Supreme Court because it doesn't answer any question. In any case, can somebody explain to me today why the EC and the President's legal team in the Supreme Court fought hard, fought tooth and nail to prevent Jean Mensah from entering the witness box? Somebody must give me a reason. How fatal would have her entry into the witness box been to their case? And if that was going to be fatal, what made it fatal? What made it fatal? If the Electoral Commission had been transparent, sufficiently transparent in the organization of that election, why would they find it difficult to explain what they did? Why would they find it difficult to be confronted with their own actions and the outcome of their actions? Why were they running away from that responsibility? These questions have not been answered yet. And I haven't heard anybody answer these questions to my satisfaction. I took the trouble to read the decision of the Supreme Court. And I want anybody to challenge me. The Supreme Court itself said that there could have been padding of votes. There could have been padding of votes. Indeed, there was padding of votes. And that the votes which were padded was not sufficient to change the outcome. Was that not the decision of the Supreme Court? Was that not the decision of the Supreme Court? And indeed, if it is established that there was padding of votes, should we go finding out how many votes were padded? Is the fact that there was padding of votes not sufficient to annul an election results? I just wonder if there were padding of votes, which is an illegality, which all the laws frown upon and so on, what was the point? You understand? So it is not like everybody, including the Supreme Court and so on, accepts that nothing went wrong with the last elections. Why? It has been demonstrated very clearly that there was overvoting in some of the polling stations. Are we to accept that? How would these reforms change that situation so that in the next elections we would not have experiences of overvoting? How would these reforms change that? My brother, we are being told that one of the reforms proposed by the EC is an all-year-round registration of voters. That presents practical difficulties because we know, all of us know, that even when the parties have agents in the registration process, things can go wrong. Now, if you have an all-year-round registration of voters, are we going to have party agents all year round superintending over the registration of voters? And if we're not going to have that, how are we going to make sure that some of the things that happened even in the presence of party agents don't happen. That's a real practical problem we have to address. You understand? That's a real practical problem we have to address. In any case, this is a suggestion which has been made some time ago. What was the reaction of the EC? The reaction of the EC simply was throw the register away. Throw the register away and let's have a new register. In any case, what's the substantial difference? Substantial difference. I mean substantial difference between the register we have now and the register we had before. You know, Sena, only yesterday evening, I was thinking about the elections and all the things that happened in the elections. And I remembered that in the run-up to the election and during the election, the issue of the Homeland Study Group was uppermost everywhere. It was in the newspapers every day. Troops were being massed in the Volta region. Borders were being closed and so on. Immediately after the election, the Homeland Study Group has vanished. What happened? The Homeland Study Group no longer exists. They are no longer piling gravels on roads and so on. What happened? You know, I think that our leaders must sometimes listen to themselves. I think that our leaders sometimes must come to the realization that the 30 million people of Ghana are not all yo-yos. The secessionist movement, the Volta region, died after the election, never woke up again. What happened? Somebody must be explaining to us how all of a sudden the Homeland Study Group has collapsed. They are no longer training people in the mountains. There's no longer a need to mass up soldiers in the Volta region because the elections are over. What is this? I can't believe it. Look, if there ought to be electoral reforms, the electoral reforms must be such that our votes will count. Our elections will be meaningful to the extent that it will produce the outcome that the majority of the Ghanaian people want. Any reforms which do not produce this outcome will be useless reforms. You know, in 2020, there were disputes about the election results. The NDC decided to go to court, the court ruled, and everybody appears not to be resisting the verdict of the court. And please mark my words. I'm not saying that everybody accepted the verdict of the court. I'm saying that we appear not to be resisting the verdict of the court. That should not lead us to a situation of complacency. Because the 2020 election results was not resisted may not be a sufficient indication of what will happen in 2024. The people of this country are already suffering enormously. Petroleum prices are going up. The VAT rate has been increased. Taxes are rising. Food prices are shooting through the sky and so on. People are already suffering. Please don't add any more to what you're already trying to endure. Don't add any more, because even the elastic has a point at which it breaks. You can stretch the elastic, but if you stretch it beyond a certain limit, it breaks. I would have wished that in this period of extreme difficulty and so on, those who manage our institutions, especially our electoral institutions, will be minded not to impose a lot more stresses on our people. There may be the need for electoral reforms, but these must be discussed in an atmosphere of openness, of compromise, and above all, an atmosphere which is deliberately constructed to ensure that the people's will matters in this country. If we fail to do that, the consequences may be too grave for us. Let those who have ears to listen, listen and listen well.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. That should do it for our very first round of discussions. I'd like to say a big thank you to Benya FM and Cape FM in the Central region, and also a big thank you to Ahunto 92.3 FM once again. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the issues involving the security liaison for the Ashanti region.
He has labored.
Hello, what are you doing Tuesday to Friday, 7:30 to 9 o'clock p.m. every day? You should be watching The Couch. I'll tell you why. On Tuesdays, we talk social issues, lifestyle, health, all those everyday issues that affect us in the big ways. Late Wednesdays are for book reviews. Thursdays are for the hard talk, those social, economic, policy-oriented, political questions that demand for the tough questions to be asked. And personality profiling Fridays, when we get to know the stories behind the winning personalities we love. Inspirational story from inspirational personalities. Hey, listen, you really cannot miss The Couch with me, Amma, but still the only TV show with a hat.
Market Stories is all about our market. Issues such as sanitation, market structures, storage facility, pricing, bargaining, and everything else that goes on in the market. It's going to be very educative, entertaining, and interactive. We would visit our various markets to interact with both sellers and buyers to know everything concerning our market. Join me. My name is Maud Analinate. I'm your market lady.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and the champion of liberty, of human equality.
Thank you very much for sticking and staying with us. We are still live on Pan-African Television. It's the Mother World Talk Shows, ALHAJI and ALHAJI. I still have in the studio with me Mr. Kwesi Parajina, who's managing editor of the Inside newspaper, Jifar Tegan. And also I have Mr. George J.C., who is a member of the NPP's communication team, Director of Communications for the National Disaster Management Organization, and Mr. Joseph Yamin, a former Deputy Ashanti Regional Minister. A couple of your messages before we move on to the next discussion. Peter Kujo Lavengo Ameno there says is watching us. Uncle Kwesi Pratt will continue to educate all of us. But the Badika says, truly, the mother of all talk shows. Is only who wish to know knows. Nana Franchi says, Uncle Kwesi Pratt have said it all. Thank you for always doing justice to issues of national interest. May God bless and protect him. He sent that from Reykjavik in Iceland. Fred Nate says, Sal is not, please, madam, Sal is not only 4 towns. There are 4 traditional areas with more than 15 small towns. Muhammad Bulala Zangina is also saying, keep educating and informing us. Okay, so a few more of those messages on Facebook. Let me read some from WhatsApp platform. Says Sena, NDC should stop the joke and be serious for once. If this business of boycott didn't work for them in 2020, what makes them think it will work for them this time? Our selected president and the selector would never bow unless they are matched boot for boot by the NDC. They should remember that there's nothing positive with boycott. And Dananado, David sent that from Lakeside. Okay, this one says, please kindly find out from George AC, the director of communication at the head office of NADPO for me. The criteria being used for, oh, okay, this has to do with your work. Okay. Yes, so I think it's not a topic under discussion. That's another issue you are introducing. Maybe I'll pass it on to him so that maybe we can deal with it after we are done. There's this one which says, good morning, Pan-African TV. MPP and the EC are the most dishonest people in this country. This document said there's a document from a SEPA exposing the EC on their claim of saving the country 522 million Ghana cedis. Please let your okay. Thank you very much for sharing it with us. Some more messages from us. Okay. So I want to plead with you to please tell the EC to pay us our money. In fact, I don't think there's a single show where somebody doesn't send a message to me about EC paying them their money. Stephen, yes, yeah, they should hear it. Stephen in Koko says, I want to ask why the EC told us the IPAC is not needed with their decision. So why now they want the parties to sit down for reforms? Tell the MPP man that the taxes taken from all of us, both private and public sector workers, can't be used for this dubious Electoral Commission. A few more. Okay. This one is saying a good morning to myself and Joseph Yamin, who is incoming national organizer of the NDC, and Mr. Pat. Says the MPP and Nanado have destroyed the democracy we enjoyed for years, and all the clergy, civil society, and the media are silent just because they are free, and most of them remain hypocrites. Let me put this on record. No one will prevent the NDC from winning the next elections. We all know state institutions, including the EC and the Supreme Court. Okay. And it says, Madam Jimensa has started the rigging agenda, but tell her that she will never succeed this time around. That's from Asana Bukari Majid from Boku. Thank you for the message. A few more of your messages. This one is from the Felix AY, Ghana Technology University College, Tessano. Says, until Jimensa and Dr. Bosman is kicked out of office, the operation of the Electoral Commission remains static. Jimensa is working for the MPP, and there's no doubt about it. It's a fact. Dr. Bosman stated publicly that the NDC is an imminent threat to Ghana's democracy. We expect fairness and neutrality in our electoral system. That's never going to happen. So let me leave it there. I'll come to read some more whilst we go along. So let's move on to the issue of what happened in terms of the security liaison for the Ashanti region. I think the last time a story was reported on it was about some 3 days ago, where he insisted that he was still at post, even though the National Security Coordinator says his contract has ended, and he was being removed from office after several attempts to do that through letters to him. Let me start with Mr. George AC this time around.
Thank you, Sena. Birth certificates and co will be very relevant for source documents, for passports, and then national identification authority cards. And these are the base documents the EC intends to be using. They're actually considering leaving out the guarantor system and co. Now let me come to SAL. SAL I've lived in that enclave before, and so the EC, I blame the former MP for Hohoe South and then the Boehm MP, those people. You know, when we created the new regions, the Constitution in Article 47.2 says succinctly that no one constituency can fall in more than one region or in two regions, okay? And so if it is there, and then Hohoe, part of Hohoe has been ceded and is in the OT region, don't you see that? As an MP, it's your duty to bring that up in Parliament, even if it's a deliberate ploy by the EC, okay, to marginalize those people or to prevent those people from voting in the presidential election. It's the duty of that. I thought that the EC could have just aligned that part, the cell, to the Buem constituency. Okay?
The current attorney general actually produced a document in court that is supposed to be a CI. That place is, what they call it, Santo Kofi Akpaplo in Buem. After the EC had reached a statement,
that should have been the case, okay? But it wasn't the case. That's how come they didn't vote in the presidential. You get it? And that I agree that they were disenfranchised. It was a problem. But I thought it could have been cured if some people had been very proactive. And last one, I disagree with the Uncle Kwesi Pratt on the issue that pink sheets were not needed, especially when my sister Jifa Tega here is saying they were vote pardon, which was corroborated by Uncle Kwesi that indeed the Supreme Court said they were pardoned, which is less than 6,000 or so, and couldn't affect the results in any way. Okay, and so how do you prove that there were pardons if you don't take the base documents to the Supreme Court? How do you prove that? How do you prove that? And when the NDC had invoked Article 63(3), which says nobody can be declared president unless he makes 50% plus one. What are you going to use in proving that? Nobody got 50%. NDC said nobody had 50%. You needed the base documents. It's mathematical. Okay? And the errors, you don't use total votes to compute the resource. You use the total valid votes. And some said the first thing they were using the total votes. It's wrong. The total vote minus rejected ballots will give you the total valid votes, and that becomes the denominator for the computation of the results for any party. Anyway, let's leave it at that. Viewers will make their own assertions on that. So pink sheets were needed. We took over 11,000 pink sheets to the Supreme Court of Ghana in 2012. Okay? And there were infractions, a lot of them, but the Supreme Court gave a ruling, and people were happy in this country. So let's come to DCOP Ayensu Pariado. Look, we have the National Security Coordinator. Of course, under this government, we have the National Security Minister, and then we have the National Security Coordinator, who decides to have representations across the country in all the 16 regions. Those representatives are the National Security Liaison Officers, okay? And so they work in tandem with the Regional Coordinating Council and the Regional Minister and his team to ensure the security in the region. And so Ayensu Opariado was sent to Ashanti region in 2018 to be by the National Security Coordinator to be the liaison officer there. 2-year contract. And the 2-year contract expired and was renewed. And in the renewal terms, there were clauses therein that before somebody, if you decide to truncate the tenure of the officer, 2 weeks notice must be given and 2 weeks pay in lieu of truncation of the agreement must be paid to him. Or if the converse is the case, if he wants to relinquish the position, okay, 2 weeks notice must be given to the national security, and then whatever compensation that ought to be paid and all that. And so his mandate was renewed, and in February of this year, the national security felt no, they were not going to continue, maybe based on certain intelligence they had. And so they thought they were going to truncate his term, and he ought to relinquish power. And so it was communicated to him. And you know, he decided from that point that in May somebody was going to take over. Okay, so enough time was given to him to prepare and leave office. And yet he decided he was not going to hit to that. And so letters were sent to him. He wasn't taking it, and he was invited to come to Accra, you know, to meet the National Security Coordinator. He decided not to oblige that. And then the National Security Coordinator decided to detail men to go and bring him. You get it? Look, in the security services, disobeying orders is a crime. If you disobey orders, instruction, by your superior officer, it is you can be locked up. You will either be court-martialed or marched to odd room, okay? And then you'll be drilled. You can be locked for 2-3 days. You asking, I stayed in the army bars, boy. I'm telling you, if you disobey order, the security services thrive on order, ranking. That's what is done. That's why if you're in the bar every day, you see people saluting left, right, center. Why? Because they've seen their superior officers. That's the way it works. And so if your superior officer gives you order and you decide to blatantly disregard it, and you say what? You should be allowed to do. A person who is risen in the police rank to DCOP, Deputy Commissioner of Police, is not small post, Sena. Eh? And you are disobeying orders. I've seen policemen locked up in cells and drilled in the hot sun, 12 to 2 p.m. You'll be carrying that, not AK-47, the long one. You'll be carrying it over your head for 2 hours, moving back and forth. Drill. Okay? And here we are, trying to dignify that. Yes, because DCOP said he identified some people in his earlier statement that they were from Delta Force. Okay? If they had been with the Delta Force and they've been incorporated into the national security and trained, issue, unless you say they cease to be Ghanaians because they've been part of Delta Force before, so they don't have any right to be in the national security apparatus. If you do that, and then that's why he brought the Ashanti Regional Police to arrest the guys. They were arrested. When they were detained, the Accra sent a message to the police regional command that no, these people are officials of national security and were detailed by the national security coordinator to bring the man to Accra before they were released. You get it? And you were saying, they say even up to now he's still there, adamant. And the issue is when they went to him, I understand he pulled his side gun. Okay? It's serious. Because he feels those people were a threat. So he could have shot any of them. And some of them, I understand, they also had a gun. They could have also shot. So in the security system, when order is given, you obey. If you disobey, you have a question to answer. Even if that order you think is not right, you obey. That's why they say obey before complain. Have you heard those things? You obey and carry it out. And later, you report an investigation or processes will be gone through. That the superior officer was wrong in giving that order. If you disobey it, even if he is wrong, when they go, you will be punished for the disobedience. Ask any army officer, any police, any person in the security apparatus. Ask if these are not basic things. Okay? If you cannot obey orders, don't join the forces. Don't. Okay? And so please, it's unfortunate it happened the way, but I was happy when it happened. I realized that it wasn't Delta Force. In fact, I was here on another program in the studio, and I was very worried that a Delta Force members would do that. Okay? At that time, we had not been apprised of all the facts. So we had heard from Opariado himself, and he was claiming Delta Force people were also some galamsey things he was preventing some people from carrying out. And that's how come they were on him. And I got angry that why should we, after the passage of Act 999, okay, of 2019, the Vigilantism and Related Offences Act, okay, why after that, and assented to on 23rd August by Excellency the President. So it's law now. And you are still having people invading National Security Office from a vigilante group. Come on, we cannot condone that. So when the facts were later rolled out, it happened that no, these are officers detailed from the National Security to go and bring one of their own. Okay? And so let's get the facts properly situated. The new officer, Colonel Dofa Atta, was to take over. Jesus says, no, I don't know why. Because somebody appointed you, okay? and you work within the structures. You are accountable to somebody. And so if there is this thing that your superior officer says, yes, your agreement, the contract is ended, relinquish your position and move on. Whatever compensation there is, we're going to give you so that you go. And you say no, as if you appointed yourself. I don't get it. The order, this thing, the structures that ought to be respected in the security agencies and forces, and those must be followed through stricto sensu. If you decide to disobey, disagree, disrespect order, you must bear the consequences of that. Okay? And so what happened in Kumasi, initially I was very, very worried. Okay? Because I thought it was going to take my party, that Delta Force again. Look, I wouldn't sit here and run away from the fact that the invisible forces and the Delta forces then helped us a lot. Okay? Some of the boys will come when you're going on campaign. Sometimes, look, in campaign processes, Sena, if you don't take time, you can be killed and thrown away easily. Easily. Okay? So if you don't take time and you don't get some protection around certain times, your life can be in danger. And so sometimes with you feel encouraged, especially those of us who are in the throes of the campaign. Okay, you feel encouraged and cool. But since the activities, after we won the election in 2016, we got into office, some of the activities, we compelled the nation to rise up to call for this Vigilantism Act and all that, which is now in force. They don't have the right. Thank God they were not the people who did that. These are official security people sent to Kumasi to go and bring the ban. Okay? I thought it wasn't necessary. This UOP could have come upon, invitation by his superior. That's it. But whatever be the reason, okay? Look, let's obey instructions. As I said earlier, if he had reasons that it's because of A, B, C, D, that the National Security Coordinator is relinquishing, relieving him of that position or responsibility, obey. But get another channel. Definitely there's a structure within the national security outfit to take complaints and co. You can then go and report to some top people that, look, this is the reason A, B, C, D, why I was sacked. Can you investigate some of these things? You can do that. But don't blatantly and brazenly disregard authority. It's not good for all of us. Today, it may be because it's MPP in power and these things happen, so you can be excited and be happy. Tomorrow, you may be in power, and some may take a leave from that. Okay? When we went to the Supreme Court, little the people know that it will be their turn. Okay? When the tables turned today, another party, DIFA was in the Supreme Court with no pink sheet. Eh? With no patient. Okay, so tomorrow it may be another reason. Okay, so national security issues sometimes to some recently the Minister for National Security issued a statement. I don't think it's bad. I just want to box it in regarding the Kuda guys issue. I think Colonel Frank Ajiman is being suspended or something, and 3 other policemen are to be relieved of their responsibilities. Their names were not put in there.
Yes, the Kemen has been.
Good, right? Yeah. So they go back to back. That's it. So it's good because this is an admission by national security that indeed there were some untoward conduct by their officers. Okay, as far as the journalists from CTFM were concerned. Okay, we are making progress. If we can get such complaints, people misconduct themselves and they will pay the price or they face the consequences for that. It's good. We are building a nation. It's progressive. Okay, and so national security, most times their conduct is not being the best, Sena. Maybe because of where first the national security people, some of them or a lot of them, have been with other security forces before they've been co-opted there. And like it, the truth, both MPP and NDC, we are both guilty. We've put some of our boys in there. It's fact over the peers. These are facts. And so that's how can somebody sees the person, this guy was a Delta Force guy, and now he's there. This guy was with Azoka Boys, he's there. Okay? They know themselves. But once you're doing your work professionally, let's allow them, because they are citizens, they're Ghanaians. They have the right to work and earn a good living. Okay? And so because we've associated with some group before, and once there's no criminal charge against you and you conducted yourself well, let's allow them to do their work. Okay. But let's people respect the structures. DCOP Ayensuo Pariado did not respect the structure. If he has any problem, he has avenues to use. Okay? And what happened was not an activity by any hoodlum or vigilante group. It was the national security people who were detailed to bring them, and he resisted arrest. When you resist arrest, let me tell you, Sena, these days we don't want to talk about this because of democracies. And uncle is here, he's been, forgive me, uncle, when it comes to arrest and he knows what it is. You get it? When you resist arrest and you are not careful, the officer you meet, some slaps, you will take it. Okay? It's not the best. But it happens. These are things that happen with the forces. It's not the best. Okay. But if you report and the investigator is done, they can be punished for that. So let's stop these things.
Dennis Akweti says, it is not only sad and strange but regrettable that we have gotten to the point that under a human rights lawyer president in a democracy, it is not possible for government employees who attain retirement age or have their contract expired can refuse to leave office, and must take national security to remove them from office as the appropriate option. Just too bad. Koblavi in Pokwasi says there's too much crime and suicide cases because of poverty. Ghanaians, you said, must believe MPP government. This is Habib Bantus in Italy, who says, good morning. The EC led by Jim Mensah claim they are independent, yet it is we, the taxpayers, who fund all the activities. Yet we can't criticize them constructively. The EC so-called reforms without the biggest opposition party, the NDC, is bogus and must be thrown to the dogs. Today in Ghana, hoodlums parade themselves as national security, terrorize innocent Ghanaians, including the state security forces. What is most shocking is the impunity by which they commit these atrocities on innocent civilians. The Akufo-Addo has destroyed our beautiful democracy. It says, get up, stand up for your country. Thank you for that message. Okay, let me see if I can do one last more from WhatsApp platform before I go to Jifa. Those ones, so the MPP man in the studio is happy the Delta forces have maltreated his colleague because he has released their secret of Galamsey and said again their boys can kill him. Okay. Thank you very much. Jifa.
It's a little funny because this particular issue, you realize if you can cast your mind back to 2017, history has just repeated itself. It's just that in this particular time, we haven't allowed the whole process to unfold completely. If not, it would have exactly repeated itself. In that 2017, just after the all-die-be-die president took over power, the Ashanti Regional Security Coordinator was also forcefully removed from office by Delta forces. And this issue was taken to court. They went ahead, after brutalizing the man, they went ahead to storm into a court room and then free the people that were arrested, the Delta forces agents that were arrested. And the only thing that came from it was caution. That was the only punishment that they received. They were cautioned, the Delta forces. So, if today, DCOP Ayinsu is being forcefully removed from office, and if you listen to his interview, he says that he recognized 2 Delta forces agents in the uniform of national security. This is not me saying it. This is he. And we know that ever since the issue of the Ayawaso West Wagon crisis, the issue of vigilante had gone all round and people were very, very taken aback. People were angry that vigilantes exist, and then we decided to ban them. this COP Ayinsu was part of those who banned them. So I'm not even shocked that he's going through what he's going through, because I feel like it's a punishment for him. Immediately we felt the suppression of vigilantes. There was a rise in the suppression, in the activities of the national security coordinators. And per a lot of witnesses, they will tell you, Samens of City TV, well, here last week when I said in his interview with his own colleagues, he said that they were so unprofessional. Some couldn't even express themselves well in English. They come and you just see vigilantes. You see hoodlums in the uniform of national security. It lets me cast my mind back, track everything, every single thing these so-called national security agents have done since 2017, and all I can believe is that they are the private army of the NPP. The national security is the private army of the NPP. That is the only thing that I can believe. Because you can see that they do certain dirty work, they have very little or no training at all, and come just attacking. I mean, when you tell me about orders to arrest, to leave your position, when Ayinsu was talking, that DCOP Ayinsu had been asked to vacate office because his tenure had ended. And then just because we are thinking that that is the case, and then he can be arrested for that, or that is not abiding by the orders of your superior. So we just allowed hoodlums to come and attack him. When these same hoodlums were arrested by the police, he shouldn't forget that those hoodlums who were sent by the superiors ended up being arrested by the police. How is that possible? What does it tell us that they were?
No, sorry, it was misinformation. National Security Coordinator communicated with the regional command
to arrest them.
And they released them immediately. He told them they were national security detailed.
So if there is,
so that's that.
Let me just even take what he's. I'm trying to let him understand that this is a sham.
Cannot be.
There is no way a police officer, a military man would go and arrest somebody, and then a police will mistaken it. Look, as a citizen, there are certain things that I look for in a security personnel. The reason why I would respect a police officer only in uniform and with ID, and I would never respect any police officer. When I say respect, I mean I would never regard him as a police officer if he is wearing your attire today with no ID. Because when you are not represented with an ID card, if you are not well identified, you are nothing. You are just a mere citizen. It ends there. If they had ID as national security operatives, they were in the right uniform, they represented themselves well, there is no doubt of who they were, the police would definitely, if they had warrants, if they had a written permission to arrest this man, attack him, hit him in the groin with AK-47, per his own words, do you think the police would have been able to arrest them and put them into cells, waited for their so-called leader or superior to call before they were released? Let's just be sincere. Who in this country, this is just an open secret, who in this country doesn't know that this so-called national security operatives are just a group of young boys who have been recruited by the NPP just to attack, or should I say, to do the dirty job of the NPP? That is the issue. And this particular case makes me cast my mind to Domilevo. It is very similar to what Domilevo did. You ask Mr. Ajiman, also, he is also DCOP, retired Mr. Ajiman or something, the person who called for the arrest of DCOP Ayinsu, and you ask what he did, he said he didn't perform well, and then he was involved in criminal activities. Because he was involved in the banning of vigilantes, that has become criminal activities. That has been underperformance. So what is different from this issue and that of Domilevo's issue? You hit this man in the groin, a whole regional security coordinator of Ashanti region, being attacked by these boys. It makes me also remember Caleb Kude's case. Because in Caleb Kude's case too, we know that those who came to arrest him were so unprofessional and uneducated. They had nothing in similar with security agencies, all because they were known to be, in quotes, national security agents. From where? Why would we sit down for the NPP to have their own private army, to do their dirty work and suppress Ghanaians. You're trying to do good, and they try to bring you back down. They wouldn't fight corruption. Whoever is seen fighting corruption is being fought. Even their own people, they have realized that they can't even stand this man any longer. You said your tenure is up. Seriously? The only way that professionals and smart-minded institutions, so-called professional and smart-minded institutions like national security operatives, is to just send hoodlums to come and drag somebody out of the office. Upon all that they can, all the other alternatives that they have. How didn't they use the police themselves? Why didn't they, the superior himself, come forth like what happens in other situations? No, you wouldn't answer me because I'm not even asking you any question. Why wouldn't they? Don't even tell me that with because they are security agencies, that is how they just handle their issues. Look, I'm telling you how the man just spoke about how he was treated. And you tell me that he could have been arrested because he has he's not going according to his orders, so he could have been arrested. So he has to be beaten and dragged out of his office. In any case, he's still at post. In any case, the underlying factor is the use of these national security operatives to do the dirty work of these people. And this is what we have been encouraging. This is what people have been putting a blind eye to every single day. From when it started with Domelovo, we thought it had ended there. From when that young boy, Caleb Kuda, was on TV and was protesting about the nature of our water bodies, he had a glass of brown water in his glass. And apparently he had fetched it from a water body. I don't know whether it was a tap or a water body. And he was protesting that this can't be what we are given. This is below us. And in 2 days, he had been found at the National Security Headquarters Ministry and brutalized over trying to find answers. Brutalized, and let me mention it again, brutalized, tormented over trying to find answers or trying to hold the government accountable for cars that had been left to rot. When he was a taxpayer, when I am a taxpayer, and it is my money that is being wasted all around, finding accountability will end you being prosecuted, no matter who you are, by this government. Those who have been found wanting, like DSP Azugu, in the Ayawaso West Oregon case, when after the Electoral Commission clarified this whole situation, that this man needs to be punished, he has been found wanting, and before we realize, he is sitting at post at the National Security Ministry, comfortable. Someone like this, who has been found to have done wrong, is still leisuring around, not being punished. And then you have people who are trying to fight corruption, people who are trying to put things in the right way, being prosecuted and dragged down by this incompetent government. I remember in 2016 when the NPP wanted to tag Mahama incompetent, Sena, that he was doing this, he did that, and the NPP has come and they are doing ×2 of what they claim Mahama was doing wrong. What do you call that? Isn't it gross incompetence? A total failure. A scam of a government. Akufo-Addo and his Baumia, a scam of a government. If you come and tell me about Dumso and see how you are messing the economy, you come and tell me about taxes, a lot of taxes, you come and tell me about fuel prices, exchange rates, piling lies upon lies, when all these things have doubled or tripled in price, and you were telling me that is the reason why you were calling Mahama incompetent. You are grossly incompetent. This is a grossly incompetent government, and this, I have just never seen it before. I feel bad because I am always NDC, I've always been NDC, so I have always known my stance and it has been very objective. But I feel so bad for the normal Ghanaian who was deceived into this, for the normal Ghanaian who was thrown away. So with DCOP Ayensu's issue, I would say that it is just a revelation once again of what this government is made of. I feel sorry for him, and I just encourage every Ghanaian out there to see the day-to-day activities that come out. Every news that comes out every week. Just analyze it and see what this government and this party, let me add party, this party does, what they are made of. That they can never put us anywhere better. They are only rather going to depreciate our spirits as a people and rather plunge us into poverty. You will not interrupt me.
Okay.
You will not interrupt me. So Sena, it's as simple as that. I just feel bad for him, and I think that it is high time this Fix the Country goes way ahead than that.
Okay.
We force the government to do what they are supposed to do, or they just step out for the better people to come and rule the government.
Thank you.
That is NDC. Just in case you don't know, that is NDC.
Thank you.
That is NDC.
Let me do a message from
everything
Shine
that we
Gave.
said we were going to do,
Differ,
you sat
please.
down and
I have
said it
to
was
move
wrong,
on.
and now you are doing worse.
Differ.
No,
Please, I have to
please.
move on.
Which data?
Shine
You
Gave
come and
is
just
saying-
spew
Differ.
small marketer.
Differ, please.
That is it.
Okay. Shine Gave for Pocas is saying, I am very shocked at the presentation of Mr. Isi. Though he is entitled to his opinions, I think such opinions are very poisonous for development of our democracy. I don't think we need the beautiful features of someone to work efficiently and competently. We need intelligent and knowledgeable people to do that. As for those who were killed, it is sad AC sees them as criminals. Has there been any investigations to conclude that? May God have mercy. Okay. Thank you for that message. Sena is saying the EC is at it again. Let them know Ghanaians are not ready for anything funny this time around. Instead of closing at 3 p.m., they should reduce the number of voters further at polling stations to allow for faster voting and less cumbersome counting. All things being equal, an outcome will be better. Okay, let me jump to Kojochumba after. I'm loving this. So, Sena, what is the punitive quotient? And Koje, please. In reseconding seconded policemen and a soldier who have abused the human rights of a journalist, are they not still going to be paid? George, did the so-called people who were sent to arrest DCOP Opariado identify themselves as agents of the state who had power, with a warrant to arrest a former deputy commissioner of police who happens to be a lawyer and a PhD holder? What kind of lawlessness is this? George, how can you defend this? How do you reconcile the different stories we are hearing? Opariado is not my favorite person due to his own activities during the Kufuor era, but he's absolutely no criminal. If he has committed a crime, why was he not committed for prosecution? It's only in the MPP administration that a regional security coordinator can be determined to be a criminal, and criminals are sent to eject him from his post. And it says, I am loving the submissions of the... Okay. The totally spiced up Jifa. Yes, Santua Reloaded. That's coming from Kojochumba. Let me end with Kofi Kwache in the UK, who says, please, would you ask Mr. Isi which or what order was Opariado disobeying? It was the National Security Coordinator in the Ashanti region, so it is presupposed that he didn't recognize these national security operatives. Should he had just followed them to Accra? Was Opariado being arrested or being ordered or invited to Accra? If orders were so powerful tool of a chain of command, why did the order be given by his supervisors in Accra to report to Accra? Should they send operatives to bring him down to Accra? Mr. Isi, please be mindful that... Okay, thank you. Yeah, me?
Sena, thank you. I think I remember having an interview with you on radio, and I stated that DCOP Opariado needs no sympathy from anyone. I can understand Gifa having some sympathy for him just on the face of how he was handled. I can agree with Gifa on that score, but I have said that he's being paid by the very act he had nurtured to this level. He's been a beneficiary of the same act. That is the same act that brought him to office, and he never complained about it. He never raised any issues. In fact, to the extent that he left those that are still to be arrested by the national security and the police still working freely till they came to inflict on him the same act that brought him into office. So why should we be having some sympathy for Opare-Addo? But the whole issue is the confusion that is arising out of this issue. Number one, I'm yet to find out clearly under whose command is Opare-Addo working. Is it the Minister for National Security or the National Security Coordinator? I'm coming. But there's a letter here from the National Security responding to DCOP Opare-Addo. This in the New Crusading Guide. Opare-Addo's misdemeanor led to his explosion, national security. Opare-Addo has stated, and I listened to him on your show, that he was terminated by the National Security Coordinator. That is Brigadier General, whatever. And now it is the National Security Ministry that is responding to his dismissal or the action. Again, who sent them? The people that went to him, were they from the National Security Coordinator or they were from the Ministry of National Security? We are still not being told, or there's no clear indication as to who these guys were working directly under. It is something that we need to find out. Now, if you read, I think there's a paragraph in it. This is the New Proceeding Guide, page 3. To further emphasize the reason that warranted the termination of his contract, the Ministry of National Security constantly received reports of how DCOP Opare-Addo had become a teen god unto himself and had transformed his office into a theater of anarchy to perpetuate criminal activities, including the formation of an illegal task force that engaged in bribery and extortion in the Ashanti region. This is from the National Security Ministry. You think that Opare-Addo should just be issued a termination letter to just go away? If these criminal activities resulted in the termination of his appointment, do you think he should be working freely as a person? Sena, do you think that if it were to be me and you, we'll be sitting in this studio discussing issues of national security? So if it is an MPP, you can commit the crime. And all that they will do to you is that get out of the office, go freely, work freely. Is that not it? Now, this COP Opare-Addo is responding to that. He says that he identified Delta forces among the people who came to arrest him. Again, we are still yet to find out where they were working from. Is it the National Security Minister or the National Security Coordinator? We don't know, and we should know their duties, line of duties. But the National Security cannot send people from Accra. If they want to pick this COP Opare-Addo, should they send people from Accra to pick him? Are there no security forces in Ashanti region that can arrest Opare-Addo? If Opare-Addo is not leaving his office, as it has been stated in another paragraph here, that he's been paid all his salary and things to leave the office, and he's still occupying the office, which you have told us that he still says he's occupying the office, does it warrant an arrest of him and transporting him from Kumasi to Accra? All that you needed to do was to barricade his office, stop him from entering his office, and that is all. If only that is the reason why he's being picked by people from national security. So there's more to it that they are not telling us, and I think that we should be interrogating that to want to find out what really will require people being sent from Accra to Kumasi. Again, people in authority, do they really know or understand what their office requires them to do? Because in Ashanti region, there is a regional security council. Doubt the knowledge of the regional security council. The
risk. So in this situation, was RISEC aware? And RISEC includes the regional security coordinator. So if national security can enter Ashanti region, send people to go straight to the regional security coordinator's office without recourse to the regional minister's office, without recourse to the regional police command's office, nor the military office, then there is something that we are not doing. Then there is more to it than what we are reading from these papers, and requires that we go further to want to find out. Why would the police in Ashanti region not giving the right or the command to arrest Oparado? Now, if Oparado says he's not leaving his office, should we come and pick him in a van to Accra simply because his office, his tenure in office has ended and he's still occupying that office? It doesn't make sense. And it will never make sense with this act. To the extent that you are coming to pick a national security coordinator and you come with arms, AK-47, to come and pick a national security coordinator. For what? Then the national security coordinator also goes around to say that he was fighting Galamsey, and that is the reason why they are terminating his contract. Sena, if you are fighting Galamsey and they terminated your contract, do they need to pick you, handcuff you, drive you from Kumasi to Accra? Is it a requirement that if you are fighting Galamsey, and for that matter, the MPP says that we are arresting you, we are transporting you, we are sending you to Accra, for what charge? I don't understand, and I will never understand. Yes, indeed, under Oparado's administration, Galamsey has tripled or even quadrupled in Ashanti. And he's aware. Being operated by MPP party executives, leaders, ministers, and others. He's aware. What has he done? So, in terms of fighting Galamsey, that can never result in this termination. But the point is that why would they bypass the security set up in Ashanti region? You want to push Oparado out of the office, not just pushing him out. And in fact, are you aware that after the police arrested these boys, Oparado was not sent to Accra? If the command was from National Security, we ordered the boys to come and arrest them. Why was Oparado left? When the police came to pick them, they all went to the police station to write their statements. There's an order from Accra that, don't worry, I sent them. Was it just to release them or to enforce that Oparado should put in a car and go to Accra? So if it was just about going to take him out of the office, why didn't they call the police to do that? And I've told you that. Why would you sympathize with Oparado? These boys he's mentioning were the boys they used in 2020 elections. In fact, he supervised them in 2008 when he was the Ashanti Regional Police Commander. After that, Oparado had been part of the MPP's security architecture, training these boys as to how they can help the MPP rig an election in Ashanti region. As a regional security coordinator, these boys he's mentioning were boys they put on military uniform, police uniform, to work as state police people in the elections, to prevent people who are perceived to be NDC in registry. He knew them. Did he arrest them? Did he prevent them? Was he not part of the grand agenda, conspiracy, that these boys can work for us because the state security will want to do a neutral job, and when they do a neutral job, the MPP will not get the votes that they are expecting to get, and so they use them. Under Opario's administration, you see a policeman with earring. Have you ever seen a policeman with earring before? Have you seen a military man with earring? Rasta military man. These were people parading in Ashanti. And he was the regional security coordinator. Did you hear him make mention of that? Today he's talking because he has been bundled from his office. Why would I have sympathy for him? But I think that shouldn't end there. I think that it is not just because his tenure has elapsed. I think there's more to it. And we shouldn't just be seeing Oparado moving around. We should go beyond that. I am expecting him to go to court as a lawyer if what they did to him was wrong. Because telling the whole world that you are a criminal and you are not a criminal should warrant some action. If indeed Oparado is not criminal, if he was not engaging in criminal activities, we should see him in court. And if indeed he was engaging in criminal activities, it shouldn't just end there by terminating his appointment. The national security should go beyond terminating his appointment. Let him face the law. There has never been a time that the MPP, and I've said it, that the NDC played into the game of the MPP by saying that, oh, let's disband vigilante activities. Oh, the vigilantes, there's no vigilante in them. When they were using their people, supervised by their security apparatus. If indeed these boys you identify are even in the national security, Delta Force, then do you think that they will go there and do what they are supposed to do in the interest of the party? No, they want to do it for Nanado to be president. Oparado did that because he still wanted to be a regional security coordinator. That's what they did. Then we, the NDC, we prayed into them, went into an election. Oh, let's stop. So we went to an election without any security arrangement. Boys, everybody sit back. There's a law. The state security will take charge. When the MPP were using these boys, putting on them military uniform, police uniform, for them to perform the duties of the state security. I am advising my NDC that we shouldn't be deceived by the MPP and the so-called people who are preaching peace, but they only preach peace when the NDC is involved. Like the Peace Council, I think they were formed because of the NDC. The only time they will speak is when the NDC is making some. We should go into the election prepared. Because these people are not in any way interested in losing power. They think that if it's fair, they will lose. But they are not prepared to make it fair. The MPP tell me what they have done. That you think that Daniel will go there and say that he's voting for the MPP. Tell me, in 4 years of Nanado's administration, come and see the abandoned projects. Nanado is moving around, going for gold. The hospitals that have been abandoned, do you know how much it would have been raking into the country as at now? Under John Mohammed's administration, 6 hospitals. Nanado done got
more than that, bro.
I'm talking about Ashanti.
Yeah.
Left them. You know how many people, school children will be sitting under very good condition learning if John Hammer was still in the office. All of them abandoned in Ashanti.
Affordable
house. If they want to affordable house, how many of them did you complete? Tell me, how many?
There are a lot if you want to chronicle them.
But if you want to join them, what is happening there? But affordable housing, as today, go there and find out how many of them have been completed. If indeed, and I always ask this question, Sena, you started it. Okay, John Muhammad and NDC came to abandon them. 4 years. Has Nanado completed them? That's me.
Saglemi.
So if their issue is about abandoning them, then who should be blamed now? Because under your tenure, 4 years, there's nothing that has been worked on them. It's still abandoned. But those that have been completed are still also abandoned. So no Ghanaian will just go in there and say that he wants to vote and will say that I want to vote for the MP. Knowing the track record.
Go for Kumasi. Go to G.
That we want to use what is
over 40-year project has been completed.
Mr. Amin, unfortunately, I have to move on. I have less than 10 minutes to go. I have to bring in Mr. Pad, but before I do that, Sena, please, why do this? What does this Nanado government call everyone of their own that opposes them a criminal, but they never call themselves criminals. How does this make sense? Please help me. He says if one says that this Nanado government are criminals, they take offense. Yet they call their own selves as criminals. And that makes sense to them. Thank you. Albert Aheto says the EC claim they had successful election. Does it include their inability to pay innocent Ghanaians who work for them? They must be ashamed of themselves. I thank God for the life of Uncle Pat. He has made my day as always. I send that from the Mekwabenya. Mr. Pratt.
So to be quite honest, I'm very frightened, by some of the statements that my brother George has made. I'm really frightened. You see, this country, all of us, from different political parties, came to the conclusion that the operation of vigilante groups could lead to mayhem. And indeed, the NDC and the NPP signed agreements to disband the vigilante groups. And some of us were naive to think that the vigilante groups had been banned. Now this morning, our friend George is telling us that NPP vigilante groups were not disbanded. They were absorbed into state security. And the excuse is that they are Ghanaians, they are entitled to work, and so on. What about the NDC vigilante groups? Are they from Mozambique? Are they not Ghanaians too? Are they not entitled to work? So what we are being told is that when we were deceived that the vigilante groups were being disbanded, only NDC vigilante groups were being disbanded. And that the rest were even given more authority and legitimacy by absorbing them into state security. Are we not frightened? Shouldn't this frighten us? That their vigilante groups have been absorbed into state security and given weapons and given state security uniforms and so on to continue operating. If you absorb the Delta Force into national security, what would they be doing in national security if not the business of Delta Force? Are we not frightened? And that is why today you move around the country. And when you see some people posing as national security and so on, you begin to wonder. Now you see policemen, or people in police uniform dressed as police people, wearing Osama bin Laden-like beards, wearing earrings and nose rings and so on. Now we know why. Now we know why. We know why. And we know why these people have been used to terrorize people, especially during election periods and so on. This is clearly unacceptable. It is not about their being Ghanaians. Because all the others were also Ghanaians. So if we are going to absorb Ghanaians into the national security system, then all the vigilante groups should have been absorbed into the national security system. I am so scandalized by these admissions. Now look, I've been watching the situation developing quite carefully. And I heard the Ashanti Regional Coordinator of Security make the point that the people who came to his office to arrest him and to molest him were members of the Delta Force. He was clear. And he says, I've been working with them, I know them. They were members of the Delta Force. And he says, they came to harass me. They came to embarrass me, to molest me and so on, because I did not approve their involvement in Galamsey. You understand? Now today, is anybody going to deny that some people in top positions in the party are not engaged in Galamsey? Can anybody deny that? Whose excavators are they burning? Have you ever heard that anybody from CPP has had his or her excavators burnt? Or have you ever heard that Bernard Mona has had his excavators bent? So, when DCOP speaks, there's some credibility. When he speaks, there's some credibility. Then the National Security comes to respond. I mean, the National Security Coordinator comes to respond. And his response, really, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Did you listen to his response? That the Ashanti Regional Security Coordinator was being removed because he was involved in criminal activities. That he was involved in criminal activities. He was really involved in criminal activities. Is that how you treat criminals? Is that how you treat criminals? You just sack them from office? I can't believe what is happening. And indeed, I'm worried and frightened. And then he says, those boys who had been described as members of the Delta Force were actually sent by the National Security Office from Accra to go and throw out the Ashanti Regional Security, to throw the Ashanti Regional Security Coordinator out of office. But he does not say whether they are Delta Force members or not. He simply says, we send them from Accra. Are we saying that anybody you send from Accra is innocent? And that if you send people from Accra, they cannot belong to the Delta Force? Is that what we are saying? Why didn't he make a categorical denial of the fact that these were members of the Delta Force? Why couldn't he make that categorical denial? In any case, if somebody in Ashanti has lost his job, security, regional security coordinator and so on, and is not leaving office, are there no policemen in Ashanti? The BNI, doesn't it have an office in Ashanti? The Ghana Armed Forces, don't they have offices in Ashanti? What is the need for a special squad carrying handcuffs and AK-47 to drive all the way from Accra to Kumasi to go and eject him from his office? Hey, Master, what is happening? I think we should all be very deeply worried about what is happening. These are their own statements. I'm not making any allegation. Just their own statements. I think we ought to be very careful about what is happening in this country. Have vigilante groups been disbanded or not? Are some vigilante groups being allowed to operate under the cover of national security? And what are the consequences for that and so on? I am worried. And I'm sure that every and any Ghanaian will be worried. And indeed, even some of the people in the MPP leadership ought to be worried. Why? Me, I don't have excavators. They will never be bent because they don't exist. Those who have excavators, are they not some of the leaders of the MPP? Are the excavators not being bent? Now they are crying and saying that the bending of the excavators is illegal. Am I the one who bent them? Have you ever seen me bending an excavator before? Today, can NDC people use the national security apparatus to go and bend excavators? It's up to them. But you know, Sena, there is something that I must comment on. I mean, I wonder why my friend George is still insisting on pink sheets. I just wonder. After all the explanations, he's still going back to pink sheets. Listen, the first results declared by the Electoral Commission of Ghana exceeded 100%, which is an impossibility. Okay? So if the Supreme Court had accepted that that declaration was an impossibility, you could not declare results in excess of 100%, would you have needed pink sheets to prove that? Certainly not. The view is that the Electoral Commission corrected its errors. That's the view. The first error was corrected in an unsigned press statement a press statement that nobody signed. If the Supreme Court was minded to reject that correction, because it had no validity, just a piece of paper and so on, would you need pink sheets to invalidate the results of the election? You would not need pink sheets to invalidate the results of the election. So this fixation with pink sheets and so on is just designed, it's just meant to throw dust into our eyes. If you carried a whole ton of pink sheets to the Supreme Court, it would not change the fact that the results declared was in excess of 100%. If you carry 5 tons of pink sheets to the Supreme Court, it will not change the fact that the correction of the errors was done on an ordinary sheet of paper without signature. Let's drop this pink sheet thing and move on. You understand? Because this pink sheet doesn't make any sense. This fixation with carrying pink sheets, tons of pink sheets to Supreme Court, doesn't make any sense.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt. Just a message on this whole issue. Says, my information is that this Yopopari was given a 2-year contract in 2018, which was renewed in December 2020 for another 2-year contract. And that contract was to end in 2022. So I'm sad to hear that his contract has ended. So if it is true his contract has ended, why was a termination letter sent to him to vacate his office? Simon sent that. Okay. So the contract was renewed and then the contract was terminated. Okay. The renewed contract was terminated. Okay. Julius Agahoha Tahiru in Asawasi says, Sena, let's all pray for Mother Ghana for Almighty to rescue us from the hands of this corrupting clueless president and his vice president. Nothing is working under this administration, and the most unfortunate aspect of it is that those who were making noise under GM have now lost their voices. My regards to Jifa Tegan for the good work she's doing for our party. Hashtag Fix the Country. That's coming from Julius Agahoa Tahiru. And Margot says I should send special greetings to the panel. That is, she's really enjoying Jifa on the show. And I think there's a message that was sent by Olanyo Nakwiti a bit earlier. Just I didn't fall into what we're discussing. It says, KGM4 has not contravened any mining rules, and it's unwise and unwarranted setting the excavators and mining equipment on fire. It cannot be the solution to this Galamsey menace. Why don't they use them to cover the dugouts and dredge the water bodies by ushering or under supervision? And a big thank you for joining us on the show for today. But before I go, this one was sent to me by Agbeko Ben Kofi. Agbeko Ben Kofi is the first news editor I've ever had in my life at Radio Jubilee several years back. And he says, my happy birthday to my grandfather, Mr. Emmanuel Kojogaziwu, who is 99 years today, to the glory of God. On behalf of his grandchildren, wish him well, and may the good Lord continue to give him strength. So a happy birthday to Mr. Emmanuel Kojogaziwu, who is 99 years today. You've seen 2 world wars. So happy birthday to you, and a happy birthday to a good friend, Victor Sagmabiase, and one of my former colleagues at Jubilee Radio, Ruben Jidodo Aja, who also celebrates his birthday today. And on behalf of the Radio Gold team, happy belated birthday once again to our personal Chocho Mucho, Peggy Abnadodo in the UK, and Patrick Ofosu Asari. And Afrin also celebrates his birthday this week. So happy belated birthday to you, and to Jude Sekle. Happy belated birthday to all of you. Don't forget, coming up. Oh, okay. That's good. Then they should. He says next week. Then we'll bring you back on the show. You organize the party immediately after the show. So that's simple.
But he is in a position to organize.
In fact, they should start from today.
First of all, he comes from an organization that. Besides, he belongs to a party in which excavators are available. Plenty excavators.
Coming up.
Your mother.
Your mother's birthday.
Wow.
Well, happy birthday in advance.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to her.
But you do have excavators.
Coming up after this show, first there will be market stories, and then there will be diplomatic affairs at 4 p.m. and then there will be talk time at 8 p.m. with Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr. So do make a date. I was joined today on the show by him. Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr. is managing editor of the Insight newspaper. It was wonderful to listen to him. A big thank you to Jifa Tegan, who joins us, and who is the personal sweetheart on the show today. And also to Mr. George Isi, who is the communications director for NADMO, a member of the MPP's communication team. And wonderful to have Mr. Joseph Yamin join us today, all the way from the Ashanti region, former deputy minister for that region. We are back same time next week with another edition of the show. From my producers, Tijani, and the rest of the team here at Pan-African TV. And a big thank you to all our affiliate stations across the country. Volta 1 TV and Hunter 92.3 FM, a big thank you to you and everyone who joined us via Facebook and our other social media platforms. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Have a fruitful week. Join us back here, same time next week.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer.